Last night, Orioles right-hander Daniel Cabrera made his first start since mid-August and dominated the Blue Jays with 7 strong shutout innings. Tonight, John Maine goes for back-to-back successful starts, auditioning for next year's rotation. And Miguel Tejada continues to climb the consecutive games ladder to tie Stan the Man Musial for 7th all-time. The Blue Jays and the Orioles set for the season finale next on Comcast Sportsnet. Comcast Sportsnet presents Orioles baseball tonight from Oriole Park at Camden Yards. The rubber game of the 3-game series and the season series between the Toronto Blue Jays and, of course, the Baltimore Orioles. Hi, everybody. Fred Manfred along with Hall of Famer Jim Palmer. Last night we saw a sterling effort from the 24-year-old right-hander from the Dominican, Daniel Cabrera. Jim, in spring training we saw a strong Daniel Cabrera, but at times this year, not the consistency that you would like to see, but he's a young pitcher.
Well, one of the league leaguers in strikeouts, but also league leaguers in walks, and sometimes that will come back to really hurt you. Last night that was not the case. You know, throwing curveballs and sliders at about 90 miles per hour. He hit 100 miles per hour with his fastball a couple of times. Going to end up with 10 strikeouts. And Greg Zahn behind the cage today said it probably best. He said the only even had a chance of hitting was a curveball last night. Now, John Maine a little bit different. Not as overpowering, but throws a lot more strike. Up in Boston, and of course it's tough to win in Boston. Best home record in the American League. Varitek with a 2-run single after a couple of walks, but then later on he's going to end up leaving the game after 5 innings with 100 pitches. He strikes out Renneria, he strikes out Ortiz, strikes out Manny Ramirez, throws a lot of strikes. And if you're looking as we end this 2005 season, what the starting lineup might be, obviously Rodrigo Lopez, Bruce Chen's had a great year, Eric Bedard was on a roll till he hurt himself. Cabrera we saw last night. Penn's been up and down, pitched better the second time. And John Maine, if you're looking, Fred, kind of interesting. He's going to pitch tonight. He's going to pitch in Texas, very good hitting ball club. Then he's probably going to catch the Yankees in New York. Then he's going to get the Red Sox at home, and then the Yankees here. So there's going to be some pretty good tests down the road. I think the Orioles will have a pretty good idea of whether he can pitch at this level.
Well, last night here at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, we celebrated 21-31 10 years later. And Miguel Tejada and Cal Ripken shook hands. They were together in the ceremonial first pitch. Tonight, Miguel will shake hands on the all-time games list played with Stan the Man Musial.
Well, you know, I mean, it's just amazing. And last night, you know, there's a great picture in the Baltimore Sun today, but down on the field, you can see the side. You know, Cal's 6'4", almost 6'5". Miguel is what, I don't know, 5'9", 5'10" on a good day. But again, very similar. One plays with a little bit more emotion. And, of course, Cal, played, 2,632 games, 2,131, so a different style of player. But at the end of the day, they both get the job done. And I'll tell you what, if you told Miguel you're going to end up with 431 home runs and over 3,000 hits, he'd have a big smile on his face, because that's the kind of numbers that Cal put up.
Well, tonight, both teams come in having won 9 games. 1 more to go, and the team that wins tonight can brag, hey, we took you last year.
Well, you're right. Now, the Orioles have not been a 500 team for the last 7 years. They're going to have to win 16 out of 24. John Gibbons, who took over last year, the Blue Jays were never at 500 all last year, so they're a couple games under. They would like to finish ahead of the Orioles. So, while it's only 1 game in the last 24 or 25 for the Blue Jays and the Orioles, pretty big for both teams.
So the Orioles and the Toronto Blue Jays wrap up their season play tonight as the Orioles and the Blue Jays play hard another beautiful night at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Comcast Sportsnet coverage of Orioles baseball is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Over 2,700 nonstop daily flights to 59 destinations. By Geico, a 15-minute call could save you 15% or more in car insurance. By Toyota, choose any direction as long as it's moving forward. By EquityUnited.com, your home run mortgage lender. By Advance Auto Parts, for the best parts, people, price, we're ready in advance. And by Katz Insurance, one call puts you in the driver's seat. A right-hander on the hill for the Orioles. The 24-year-old right-hander John Maine goes to the mound looking for his second consecutive win, his second win of the season against the Toronto Blue Jays. The left-hander Scott Downs will work for the Blue Jays. He's in the rotation, began the year at the AAA level in the starting rotation, came up to the Blue Jays working out of the bullpen. He has been strong. He had 11 strikeouts in his last outing against the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. It's the Orioles and the Blue Jays tonight. Javi Lopez continued his hot hitting in last night's ball game. Orioles and the Blue Jays coming up next on Comcast Sportsnet. Well, the terrific run of great September weather continues here at Oriole Park at Camden Yards as the Orioles and the Blue Jays wrap up their season play. Game 3 of this series. Take a look at the nationwide starting lineup for the Blue Jays, who begin play 3 games ahead of the Orioles in 3rd place in the American League East. Russ Adams once again will be at shortstop. Frank Catalanato will patrol left field. Vernon Wells, who was not in the lineup last night, back in there in center field. Corey Koski, the third baseman last night, will DH tonight. Shane Hillenbrand takes over at the hot corner. Eric Hinske at first base. Again, Greg Zahn behind the plate catching for the switch hitter. You see his numbers against the Orioles this year. Reed Johnson, the right fielder, and the switch hitting second baseman Orlando Hudson bats 9.
And the 24-year-old right-hander hails from Virginia. You can see right there, this will be already with 3 starts. This will be his 4th start, 6th appearance, couple of those in relief. Pretty good ERA, hits under innings pitched, walks probably a little bit higher, and a little trouble commanding the ball to left-handers. And we'll look at the Rico defense behind John Maine. Burns, Matos, Gibbons, that's the outfield. Javi Lopez will do the catching. Mora, Tejada, Robertson, Chris Gomez, the man for all seasons. He's played well all over the place as you look at the umpires, and we'll get a better chance to see them. But Chris at first base tonight. Javi Lopez, who DH'd last night, and as you mentioned, Fred, 3 RBIs. He catches. Geronimo Hill did a terrific job behind the plate.
And we're underway with a fastball to Russ Adams outside. So the Orioles have won 9. The Blue Jays have won 9. Final game between the two. And Adams pops it foul, and Javi just spins and looks. Count evens 1 ball 1 strike. Adams last night, 1 hit. He had a double in the 3rd inning against that strong effort of Daniel Cabrera last night. Cabrera was just lights out against the Toronto Ball Club. 1-1 to Adams. 81 degrees the game time temperature. And now 1-2 to the shortstop.
I think it's very important for John Maine. I mean, he pitched very well in his last start against the Red Sox. You go up the Red Sox, I don't think there's any more difficult place to pitch. But you go to Fenway Park, and you know they don't lose very often at home. Walk-off home run by David Ortiz last night.
It's pulled. Jay Gibbons will come up with the ball, and going into second base standing with his 23rd double is Russ Adams. So a leadoff 2-bagger to get things underway here at the Yards. The guys working behind the plate and the bases, the umpires tonight. Mark Carlson calling the balls and strikes. It's Mike DeMura at first base. Mike Fichter taking over at second base, and Brian Gorman, the umpire, at third base. And now another left-handed bat will come in to face the young right-hander John Maine. That's Frank Catalanato. Catalanato had an 0-for-4 night last night.
Yeah, 11 hits for the Blue Jays on Labor Day, only 5 last night.
And the first delivery there for a strike.
You will learn at this level when a hitter like Russ Adams, or any hitter, is late on your fastball, and then you throw him a slider about knee-high, you're going to throw a lot of doubles, and that's what happened to Russ Adams. And of course, Frank Catalanato, he comes in at 356 with runners in scoring position. Get him in, certainly get him over. This is a team, the Blue Jays scored 6 runs on Monday, but 4 of those in the last 2 innings. They have not been scoring a lot of runs, and as you mentioned last night, Fred, they've now been shut out 12 times. But last night, it's very, you know, there's an explanation for it. Mickey Brantley, the hitting instructor, said, and Cabrera's on one of those rolls last night. He was just terrific.
1-1 count to Catalanato, and fouled out of play. How good was John Maine in his last start? Well, when he started that ball game, the Boston Red Sox had won 19 of their last 20 at home and scored at least 7 runs in the last 15 games at Fenway Park. And John Maine in that ball game allowed 3 runs, just 2 of them earned over 5 innings to pick up the win.
But again, that 5 base on balls, it did hurt him. The Veritek, we showed you that in our open, kind of a check swing, excuse me. Hit it right down the left field line, but then again, the runners on base, 2 of the 3, because they were loaded at the time via the base on balls. And the thing is that it's not only the base on balls, because sometimes it's very advantageous to pitch around people, but you can't pitch around the whole team. And then when you do it against good hitting teams, and the Red Sox certainly one of them, sooner or later pitch count's going to get up and they're going to get you.
Runner at second base for Catalanotto, nobody out. Catalanotto with 42 runs driven in this season, and time requested. So the leadoff double has Adams at second base, and Catalanotto with a 1-2 count.
And for Toronto and just any team, situational hitting is get them over, hit the ball to the right side. You know, sometimes you have to give yourself up. A little harder to do with 2 strikes.
Well, the Blue Jays have managed just 3 runs or fewer in 5 of their last 6 ball games, and over that stretch, hitting as a team just .211. Tejada behind Adams, who has his lead at second base.
And that's a pitch that if you move the ball over, and this is pretty much the story of what I've seen with John Maine, is that he's very good to left-handers, and when we saw that against Ortiz, David Ortiz, one of the toughest left-handers to hit to get out, when he rides the ball in, but on the outside corner misses by 3-4 inches, and if you move the ball over, it would be pretty effective. And then doesn't get the low pitch. So now you're getting yourself into a deeper hole. Of course, the key with the Orioles, they're not scoring a lot of runs, 4 runs or less, 15 of the last 25 games. Whether it's this year, next year, 5 years from now, stay away from the big inning.
Vernon Wells will step in. Wells really struggling. He has just 1 for his last 11, and in fact he did not start in last night's ball game. He had been 0 for 14 against Daniel Cabrera, so he got the night off, and now he comes up, nobody down, runners at first and second. Missing outside, 1-0 to the center fielder.
Yeah, Vernon was talking about that 0 for 14. It got him out of the lineup. Now you hate to take him out, but John Gibbons has done a pretty good job of mixing and matching his players. And when you talked to him and said, how do you do that? He said, well, I play Wells almost every day. He's a Gold Glove center fielder. A pretty good slider right there. He said, sometimes with my bullpen, because he's got a very deep bullpen, he says I flip a coin. I said, well, why is Reed Johnson playing tonight? And he goes, well, he won the coin flip, you know.
Was it heads or tails?
Yeah, exactly. But he will do a little bit of platooning. He's got some young players, so you want to give them rest, because most of these young players have never played in September. Minor league season ends the first week of September.
High fastball, and he goes after it. He's down on the count 1-2. Vernon Wells.
And just chases a high fastball, 92, a little zoom ball. John Maines throws most of his pitches, most of his fastballs are 4-seamers. In other words, holds them across the seam.
Still no one down, runners at first and second, and Wells gets another high one but fouls this one back. So Vernon with a 1-2 count. Corey Koski, left-handed batter, is on deck. And the Orioles and the Blue Jays will not see each other after tonight's ball game. Blue Jays heading out to Tampa Bay. They'll have an off day tomorrow, and then they'll meet the D-Rays down at the Trop this weekend, while the Orioles tomorrow will be traveling cross country to Seattle to open up a 6-game road trip, 3 in Seattle, then 3 in Texas.
The thing about Vernon Wells, we saw this against Chris Ray, that's throwing 97 the other day. He threw a fastball by him, did Ray, and then he hit the next one to center field.
It's up the middle. Tejada will be there, touch the bag for the out. Tejada just getting that foot down before Catalanotto got to the bag for the first out. Runners at first and third, 1 down. And let's take a look now at the Jim Coleman Honda keys to this final game of the year between the Orioles and the Blue Jays.
Well, be the main man, and of course John Maine getting a chance to win back-to-back starts. September song, and of course that's it's just what's going on. The Orioles, they would love to be able to win 16 of the last 24, end it at 500 or maybe even better, and then this is the season series rubber game. The Toronto Blue Jays, as we mentioned, and the Orioles 9 wins apiece.
So John Maine, now a ground ball could get him out of the inning with no damage done, and a fastball in on the hands to Corey Koski. Koski had a base hit last night. Corey led off the second inning with the double. Then Hillenbrand followed with a single, but then Hinsky struck out and Rios hit into a double play, and Cabrera was off the hook.
Yeah, broke his right thumb diving back into second base in the Metrodome, and since then, I mean, this is a guy that he's usually a 20 to 25, 27 home run hitter, good third baseman, hails from Canada. Of course, he's from the West Coast, Toronto on the East Coast, but he's the guy that they thought would give them, maybe somebody to be a substitute for Carlos Delgado. Carlos going to the Marlins. But again, you can just see better into lefties, outside just missing, and then once again you're into a hitter's count.
For Koski, this is just game number 76. Russ Adams with his lead at third base. Vernon Wells close to the bag at first. And Koski with a 2-ball 1-strike count.
And that is the count that he hit the double off. And then Cabrera hit a double to left center off Bruce Chen on Labor Day. 2 days. So he's, a couple of doubles, as you mentioned. Vernon Wells does not do a lot of running. I think right now John Gibbons would love to have Koski maybe hit a ground ball into that hole if he doesn't drive one for extra base hits.
And now 3 balls and 1 strike to Corey Koski. So a very advantageous count for the hitter.
Well, if you're a veteran or a young pitcher like John Maine, that first inning can be one of the most difficult. You warm up, try to simulate, maybe have a hitter stand up there, different strike zone, different mound, even though they're similar height. And then all of a sudden, when you get out there, you might have had a good curveball because he does throw one, doesn't throw too many of them. Might have had a good changeup, but now all of a sudden things change. And sometimes, and if we look at Ray Miller, what will a pitching coach tell you? You got to trust your stuff. You talked about it last night.
And Koski hits it high in the air to right center. It's shallow. Coming over is Matos, makes the grab. Coming toward the plate is Adams. Here's the throw, and Adams is in there safe. He slides between the legs of Javi Lopez for the first run of the ball game.
Yeah, off the end of the bat. As we mentioned, 3-1, good hitters count, and Luis Matos is going to come over. Gibbons would have had to go to his right and then turn around. So Luis is going to make a strong throw, but Adams with good speed. He's stolen 9 bases, so right underneath the legs. One of those plays, if you can block the plate, might have been very difficult for Adams to get to home plate, but Javi couldn't do it.
So 1-0 Toronto, 2 gone. Wells still at first base. Corey Koski picking up the RBI. Just his 29th of the year. Fastball in to Shea Hillenbrand. Hillenbrand 7 hits over his last 31 trips. Went 1 for 3 last night. Hillenbrand had an infield hit following that Koski double in the second inning. 2 balls, no strikes. See Hillenbrand at third base. Hillenbrand, that's where we saw him play when he wore that Red Sox uniform. Has played first base most of the time this year for the Toronto Blue Jays. In ball 3. 3 balls, no strikes.
So John Maine, his first start this year was 5 innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. Twilight game, beat the Blue Jays on about 102-degree day. So the second time around doesn't have that kind of command. Already given up more runs than he did that afternoon. There's a strike. It's interesting a lot of times, and it's hard when you're young, is that you're aiming for the corners, it's not going there. Throw it for the middle, it's not going to end up in the middle. I mean, just think about the logic. If you're throwing it for the corner, it's not going there. If you throw it for the middle, it's not going to probably go to the middle. But you are a little more aggressive in the strike zone.
And Hillenbrand skies it to center. Matos retreating. He has it in range. Final out of the inning, but the Blue Jays come up with a run on the sac fly off the bat of Koski. They lead it 1-0. Orioles coming to the plate in the first. Well, the Orioles have played 14 wins, 17 loss baseball under interim skipper Sam Perlazzo, and here's Sam's nationwide starting lineup tonight. Brian Roberts, the switch hitter at second base. Melvin Mora at third. Miguel Tejada, the shortstop. Jay Gibbons once again in the cleanup spot. He is in right field, and you see his numbers for this month of September. Javi Lopez has been hot. He's behind the plate catching. Alejandro Frede at the designated hitter spot. Eric Burns in left. Chris Gomez at first, and Luis Matos, the center fielder. Left-hander Scott Downs ready to get things underway in the bottom of the first. There's the fastball on the outer portion of the plate. Strike one to Bryan.
Yeah, the numbers maybe not impressive coming off his best start. 11 strikeouts against Tampa Bay. And there's a lot of people look at Tampa Bay. They look at the record, but they have one of the best offenses, at least from a batting average standpoint. This is a good kid that actually, I mean, he, last pitch in the big leagues with Montreal last year. Not a great year, but when you have Tommy John, and he was 3-6 with a 5.14 ERA last year.
Vernon Wells racing. He can't get it. It's beyond Wells. The speed of Roberts at second base. He will head to third, and Brian Roberts starts it off for the Orioles, reaching third base.
Vernon Wells, one of the kind of old-fashioned, won a Gold Glove. He doesn't dive for balls. He was way over in left center. So this ball hit about maybe 25 feet to the right of second base. Looks like it's going to be pretty routine, but Brian Roberts finds a seam in the defense, and Wells can't get it. And what exacerbates the whole situation is the ball gets by him. And right here, Brian just thinking, well, maybe it'll be a hit. Now maybe it'll be a double. Now maybe it's going to be a triple.
And it's his 6th of the year. And the Orioles, with no one down, have that tying run at third base for Melvin Mora.
Yeah, back at first, in at third base with Koski. Or make it Hillenbrand. Koski the DH tonight.
Big curveball in for a strike, and we understand that's the pitch that Scott Downs uses very effectively.
Well, he's a 4-pitch pitcher. He can cut the ball in. He's got the changeup. He's got the big curveball. He'll pitch a 2-seamer, 4-seamer. It'll be anywhere from first fastball was 85 to Brian Roberts. That one 89. On this gun, which is some people, at least some pitching coaches, think it might be a mile or two high. He might hit 90 today or tonight. But right here, fly ball, ground ball to second. Just about anywhere, ground ball to first base is going to score a run.
2-strike pitch, down and in. Zahn blocks it. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Melvin did not start the first game of this series. He did play last night. Went 0 for 2, but walked 3 times. Melvin hitting .277, 19 home runs and 66 RBI. Has a chance to pick up his 67th of the year. Brian Roberts started the ball game with a triple. He is at third base. Nobody down. Another foul ball.
So when you have a changeup and you have the curveball and you have the cutter in, 89 sometimes looks a lot faster than maybe the radar gunner will tell you, and that's what pitching's all about. Brad Arnsberg said this guy is, if you looked up the definition of pitcher, he's crafty. He'll change speeds. He'll pitch to both sides of the plate. That's how he got the 11 strikeouts. The last 5 starts, he's pitched 6 or more innings. And there's that cutter inside.
And I think it hit Melvin as he is being awarded first base.
Well, I don't know. Somebody called him out.
Oh, he called him out. And now he is out. Okay. Because I saw home plate umpire Mark Carlson step out and point to first base. And then Melvin stood around at the plate, and finally the throw down to first.
Yeah, I thought he might have fouled this ball off, but the bat head out in front of home plate, and then right there you can see Scott Downs pointing to the catcher Greg Zahn where the ball is. You can see that slider down in the dirt. And Melvin doesn't know if they call it a strike. He looks down to first base. I think right now he realizes he's been called out, and that's when he takes off to first base.
So still at third base is Brian Roberts, 1 down.
If you're sitting here, you're wondering at home, if you're sitting here at the ballpark, you go, why didn't he run? Well, if you run, that means you swung at him. He was hoping that he would have another chance.
Miguel Tejada, 89 runs driven in so far this year. As Roberts at third, 1 out. Miguel last night hit in 3 at-bats, couple of walks, and he scored 3 times for the Orioles as the Orioles beat the Blue Jays, blanked them 5-0 after losing the opening game of the series to Toronto 6-2. Scott Downs, 29 years of age, and a foul ball, third base side, 2 strikes.
Let's take a look at the Rico defense. Catalanano, we've already seen. Vernon Wells, a Gold Glover. Reed Johnson over in right field. Hillenbrand, Adams, Hudson, Hinsky, and Greg Zahn. 3rd straight game. He's the starting catcher. Yeah, there is Vernon Wells. Pretty good guy to have in center. Great glovesman. 24 home runs.
And he gets him on the slow breaking ball for strike 3. Back-to-back strikeouts. Mora now Tejada. So still at third base after the leadoff triple is Brian Roberts, and here's Jay Gibbons.
Good breaking ball underneath the strike zone, and we saw Cabrera do it last night. If you go back to last night's game, runners at first and third, actually make it first and third, nobody out, able to get out of that inning. And in Toronto, that was really their last chance. At least it appeared to be that, the way he was pitching.
So Jay Gibbons comes up. Jay hitting .245 against left-handed pitching. Scott Downs limiting left-handed batters to a .221 average this year. Gibbons has hit in 9 of his last 10. He misses down and away. 1 ball, no strikes to the Orioles right fielder. Gibbons in this series 2 for 7. 21 home runs, 61 runs driven in. And of course, Jay Gibbons, one of the guys mentioned as a comeback player this year, pulled foul. And one of the reasons, because of the injuries that he had, of course, last year, was a chain of injuries last season for Jay Gibbons, and several throughout his career.
Yeah, and probably his best year was 2003. RBIs went up, he had 100. Home runs went down, but much better with runners in scoring position. 2002, good year. 28 home runs.
2-1 now to Jay.
I think the only thing, if you look at the numbers this year, 242 with runners in scoring position, that's a little bit lower than he would like. And the on-base percentage, again, when you're only on base about 30% of the time, it's probably 40-50 points lower than he would like and the Orioles would like.
Gibbons smacks it high and deep, but well foul down the right side. Count evens at 2 balls and 2 strikes.
A lot of the good left-handed hitters, they will tell you the breaking ball you want to hit is the one at you, and that's where this starts. Watch him hit this ball, and you can see the contact just way out in front, and that's why it goes foul. That ball a little bit out over the plate is going to be a 2-run home run.
So Downs now 1 strike away from escaping a leadoff triple and not having that Brian Roberts score from third base. 2 out. Here's the 2-2 delivery all the way to Gibbons, and he goes after a pitch 1.5 feet outside for strike 3. So after the Roberts triple, strikeouts of Mora, Tejada, and Gibbons. After 1, Orioles trail it 1-0. 60-day disabled list retroactive to yesterday, and the contract of Eddie Rogers purchased from AAA Ottawa. John Main's first pitch to Eric Hinske at the knees for a strike. Hinske 0 for 4 last night.
Yeah, what that does, Fred, it clears a roster spot. If you're on the 60-day, my understanding is that you don't take up room on that 40-man roster. So Ed Rogers here, along with a number of other young players. We saw Aaron Rockers came in and pitched last night.
Eli Whiteside can go behind the plate.
Yeah, Bernie Castro has played a number of games. Walter Young had his first major league at bat and walked last night. On-base percentage of 1,000. I
was talking to him. I said, you showed a great deal of patience in that at bat, even though you'd be anxious. He said, well, there was only 1 pitch that I could really go after, and he said, I was specific in keeping my adrenaline in check. Fly ball left field. Burns over. And that's the first out. And as usual, Brent Harris is with us tonight. Let's check in with Brent.
Well, Fred, we have all seen the devastation down at the Gulf from Hurricane Katrina, what that hurricane left behind. And baseball fans tonight all over the country doing their part. Here in Baltimore, the players and players' wives were all outside of the gates tonight collecting money for the Hurricane Relief Fund. The players came out in force. There was only 3 or 4 that were scheduled to help out. Some 15 players helped out before tonight's game. Also, if you're not down here at the ballpark tonight, you can still help out. You'll notice there's signage behind home plate that reads 1-800-HELP-NOW. You can call that number and send your donations in. And all the money collected at the ballpark, Fred, tonight, Major League Baseball will match up to $1 million. So baseball fans tonight certainly chipping in and helping out toward the relief effort for Hurricane Katrina.
And certainly a much needed effort. There's Brian Roberts out in shallow right, spins, throws, and Zahn is out number 2. Saw a familiar face there helping the Oriole wives. Mike Bordick out collecting.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure he probably stopped by to see a lot of the Orioles, but also Russ Adams, who's playing shortstop, Mike worked with. because Mike, his last year, played for the Toronto Blue Jays. Probably still could be playing, but has a home in Ruxton and family being raised here in Baltimore. So good to see him, even from afar.
Reed Johnson takes the first delivery from Maine, and it's ball 1 to Johnson. Reed is in right field tonight. And that's low. 2 balls, no strikes. Gordy looks like he's in pretty good shape, enjoying his conversation with the fans. The 2-0 delivery. Kind of expect to see him in uniform on a steady basis 1 year soon, once the kids maybe grow up.
Well, yeah, and that's going to take a while. Yeah, I mean, obviously somebody that would be a terrific coach, manager, whatever. But then again, there are a lot of players. B.J. Surhoff. It'll be interesting. Now 40. What? He's 41 now. Whether he'll play next year. He'd be a good coach, manager, or whatever. But again, trying to raise a family.
Miguel Tejada handles that hard ground ball and guns the throw to first. 3 up, 3 down. Go the Blue Jays. Top of the second. They lead it 1-0 after an inning and a half. Against the Devil Rays will be dollar days when hot dogs and Cokes are just $1. Plus every inning of every game that weekend, one lucky fan will be randomly selected for a fantastic prize. Reserve your tickets today. The number to call, of course, 888-848-BIRD, or log on to Orioles.com. Javi Lopez to lead off for the Orioles. Takes strike 1 and strike 2 as he swings at the off-speed pitch.
Well, you know what the scouting report is. Try to get him out with something other than a fastball. Try to get ahead, and of course that's what Scott Downs did. Kind of remarkable first inning. Leadoff triple and then 3 consecutive strikeouts. Infield back, ground ball, middle of the infield. At least the first 2 outs would have gotten a run in, fly ball, and the Orioles just couldn't do it.
Downs ahead of Javi, 1 ball, 2 strikes, and just missing there is on. Tried to frame it for Mark Carlson, but the call goes Javi's way to even the count.
Well, Scott Downs is only 29, but he missed the whole 2001 season with a Tommy John surgery after he was in the big leagues with the Cubs. That breaking ball hit foul, and you will see that probably tonight where he'll change speeds, and if the ball is up and in, we already saw that with Jay Gibbons, you'll see some loud fouls, but position of the ball, it's hard to keep some of those balls fair. So again, in the big leagues in a hurry. I mean, pitched for the Cubs in 2000 and then the arm injury.
Full count now, 3 balls, 2 strikes. Downs has been on a strikeout roll recently. Over his last 33 2/3 innings, 32 strikeouts, and he's not a guy that blows you away.
Again, he's not a radar type of guy that's not going to light it up, but if your curveball's 80 and your changeup's 78 and you get the ball out of the middle of the plate and you're from 85 to 92.
Center field, Wells coming on and up to play it on a bounce, and Javi Lopez just continues to hit the baseball. And boy, you think back when that injury came for Javi, a couple of months out, and you wonder what could have been had he been still in the lineup for the Orioles.
Well, yeah, I mean, his numbers are creeping back up with a batting average. A home run's still down because, again, once you break your right hand, who knows how long that injury is going to take. He's up over 300 with runners in scoring position at 323. There is the Crow looking on. Time of year where if you're Terry Crowley, it's kind of like spring training where he's got about 19 hitters to deal with. A lot of those young guys, they want to come up, and even though they won't probably play as much as they would like, it's great to be in the big leagues, and Terry's trying to work with them and still work with the guys they're going to play. So many hours, and a lot of that stuff happens somewhere around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Brady goes after that one to even the count. 1 ball, 1 strike. Alejandro last night had an RBI going 1 for 2. Now with 3 runs driven in, this is his 14th game since being brought up from Ottawa. He's hit in 8 of the 13 previous games. DHing tonight for the Orioles. And did he go around? Yes, says Mike DeMuro, the first base umpire.
He even has a big strike zone at first base.
He's 90 plus feet away.
Exactly. Well, take a look. This is what Mike is looking at, and yeah, I think you could call that a strike.
He's ahead of Alejandro. 1 ball, 2 strikes. And there's the strike 3.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Fred. Bruce Chen, he's been with 9 different organizations, 8 major league teams, and at age 29, the same age as Scott Downs, he's become a pitcher. And it appears to me, and again, it's only early, but if you look at the numbers you talked about, 11 strikeouts against Tampa Bay. Scott Downs, they picked him up as a free agent. Pretty good acquisition.
Now the Orioles have made 4 outs tonight, all 4 strikeouts. At first base, Javi Lopez, second consecutive inning. The Orioles have had their leadoff man on in the first, a triple by Roberts, but then strikeouts of Mora, Tejada, and Gibbons. And a swing and a foul off the bat of Eric Burns. 0 for his last 13, and over his last 24 games, hitting just .159. Eric playing in his 36th game in an Orioles uniform since coming over from the Colorado Rockies.
At .284 against left-handers with 5 of his home runs. Equal amount of home runs against right-handers with 100 more at bats, but only .214.
1-1 now to the Orioles left fielder. Toronto Blue Jays with a 1-0 lead. A sacrifice fly by Corey Koski in the first brought Russ Adams in from third. We're now in the bottom of the second inning. Javi Lopez started the inning with a leadoff single, almost close, as Javi had to take that big giant step back and to throw up toward the shoulders where Hinske had the glove. 29 years of age, 6'2", 190 pounds, Scott Downs. The Jays have won 5 of his last 6 starts. He hasn't been a part of the decision in all those, but they have. He's kept them in the ball game and allowed them the opportunity to win.
Well, that's your job, and you can't dictate in the American League when you don't hit how many runs are going to get you. When you're going good, you pitch well and you win. When you're going good, you pitch so-so and you win. And sometimes when you're going good, you pitch poorly and you win, or you get a no decision.
Count evens 2-2 to Eric. The Orioles looking to do something they have not done since mid-August, and that's win a home series. They would do that with this game tonight. The rubber game of the 3-game series. It would also give the Orioles the season series. Last year the Orioles won 11 and dropped 8 to the Toronto Blue Jays. Right now they're 9-9. The 2-2 pitch. Burns sweeps it toward third. Hillenbrand drops it. Now Hillenbrand thinking double play.
Well, that might be one thing, Fred, and but that ball's hit so softly, you can't assume that he's thinking about anything other than, hey, we got a 1-run lead. I got a guy that's pitched well, just get it out. And again, the ball just comes out of the glove on the transfer. I don't think he ever got it with his bare hand.
So Burns reaches, and that allows Javi Lopez to get to second base for Chris Gomez. Gomez making his 20th start at first base. And Chris 9 for his last 30. There's a chance here to tie this ball game with 1 out.
Yeah, an extra out. See if it makes a difference.
And that's at the knees for a strike to Chris. Gomez has been a guy that has handled left-handed pitching very well. .337 is his average against southpaws, and most of his starts at first base have come when left-handers have been on the hill. Lopez at second, and Burns at first. The breaking ball at the knees for strike 2.
I think the one thing about Chris Gomez, and Terry Crowley, the hitting instructor for the Orioles, was talking about it at the cage today, was that, I really like him because his approach, not playing all the time, he's always been ready, not over swinging, and he knows pretty much when he's going to play. And when there's been injuries, he's had to probably play more than Leapin Mazzilli or Sam Palazzo would like, but he's prepared. And he's prepared because he doesn't overswing. And when you get to 2 strikes and you're in that situation now, it's going to make you a better hitter.
And we often see him with 2 strikes go the opposite way to right field.
Well, you watch him also. A lot of organizations, and Sam Palazzo was saying, I really want to do this in spring training if I'm the manager next year. But they'll call out, okay, man on first, hit behind him. Runner on second, get him over.
He goes to the right side. Hudson to the shortstop Adams on to first, and they turn the 4-6-3 double play. That's it for the Orioles here in the second. 1-0 Toronto leading the Birds. For a buck, it's easier than a double play. The Maryland Lottery lets yourself play. Orlando Hudson, ninth place hitter for John Gibbons and the Blue Jays, leading off. And John Main's first pitch right there, strike one. Orlando Hudson 0 for his last 10. He had a tough night last night in 3 at-bats, 3 strikeouts.
Well, 10 of them did go down on strikes. That's how good Daniel Cabrera was. But as you mentioned, in the last 2 years, he's led the American League in assists at second base. So obviously he doesn't want to go 0 for 3 with 3 punch outs, but he can help you in other ways.
1-1 delivery to the switch hitter. Now he's down to the count, 1 ball 2 strikes. On deck, Russ Adams and then Frank Catalanato. John Main gave up a run in the first. A leadoff double by Adams. Catalanato walked. Vernon Wells grounded out, and Corey Koski hit a sac fly to bring in Adams. Pitch inside. 2 balls 2 strikes to Hudson. Toronto Blue Jays 2 games under 500 at 68 and 70. As we mentioned, they sit 3 ahead of the Orioles. They're in 3rd place in the East. And foul straight back, 2-2. Looking at the scoreboard, the Yankees have fallen behind Tampa Bay. Doug Wechter pitching for Tampa Bay. Jared Wright starting for the Yankees tonight. It's 4-0 Tampa Bay. They're in the top of the 3rd in the Bronx, and of course Tampa Bay has just had a mastery over the Yankees this year, coming into the game 10-4 against New York.
Unbelievable.
Inside, 3-2. Meanwhile, the Angels at Boston. Of course, last night, Big Papi, David Ortiz hitting that 9th inning home run to lift Boston to the win. But tonight, the Angels trailing, I should say the Red Sox trailing the Angels 3-1. And there's the standings right now in the East. Struck him out. So his last 4 at-bats have been strikeouts for Orlando Hudson. He's the first out here in the top of the 3rd inning. First strikeout for John Main.
Yeah, John Main is a touch 93 tonight, so probably, and this is a backup slider, and that's the kind of a pitch he got away with early on against Toronto in his first start, but it was effective.
Adams with the leadoff double to start the ball game stands in. He scored the only run of the contest. 1 run on 1 hit for the Jays. Orioles have had a couple of hits, but they have not been able to score a run against left-hander Scott Downs. 1 ball 1 strike to the shortstop.
On the top 3, Russ Adams, and or at least the top 5 in just about RBIs for rookies and total bases, multi-hit games and triples, tied for first. Again, a very good offensive player. Mike Bordick did go to spring training because Bordy ended his career with Toronto and worked with Russ, who's a very good offensive player. 23 years, so a bit higher than you'd like.
Tejada will race out. Also coming in is Burns, and the left fielder calls off the shortstop for the 2nd out. Now tonight on Sports Night, presented by PricewaterhouseCoopers, football season of course is here. The Ravens are getting ready for their opener. They take on the Colts, and Sage Steele will have a complete preview. That's tonight on Sports Night after the game. Frank Catalanato drew a walk on a 3-2 pitch. His first look at 24-year-old right-hander John Main. And the veteran left-handed batter looks at ball 1 from John. This is Main's 6th game, his 4th start. With a 2-win, 1-loss record. 2-0. Also today, it was the Oakland A's ending their 4-game slide. They rallied to defeat Seattle 8-7. Minnesota beat Texas 8-6 this afternoon. 3 balls, no strikes. And the Orioles will next get to see the Seattle Mariners, and looking forward to that series to see Jamie Moyer Friday night for Seattle. Eric Bedard will pitch for the Orioles. 3-0 delivery. Ball 4, walking him on 4 pitches. So 2 at bats for Catalanato, and he has drawn both walks issued by John Main. Saturday evening, Rodrigo Lopez and Jeff Harris, and then Sunday afternoon, Bruce Chen and that kid Felix Hernandez, who's 3-2 with a 1.59 ERA.
He has thrown more ground balls per plate appearance than any pitcher in baseball. Now, obviously not that many innings. Pitched most of the year down at AAA, and they called him up. They said, you know what, there's nothing else he can do down there. We'll bring him to the big leagues.
Off Melvin Mora, Vernon Wells, the runner. He's fast. They got him. Nice pickup by Gomez. Wells out at first base, still puzzled by the call of Mike DeMuro, but the Orioles get Vernon Wells for the final out. Blue Jays leave a runner. They still lead it 1-0. Well, the jerseys worn by the Orioles today feature a special 10th anniversary 21-31 patch, and they are currently being auctioned off at Orioles.com as Luis Matos skies it to shallow left. Adams, the shortstop, out. And for the first time tonight, the Orioles do not get their leadoff hitter on. One out in the bottom of the third. Matos going after the first pitch, and he is retired. Now, these jerseys, along with other Ripken-related memorabilia, are available to receive bids until September 18th. All proceeds will be split between the Orioles Charitable Foundation, the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation, and the Robert Packard Center for ALS Research. Please visit theorioles.com and bid generously today. Brian Roberts started the ball game off in the bottom of the third for the Orioles with a triple, but was stranded at third base after strikeouts of Mora, Tejada, and Gibbons. Breaking ball for strike one.
And they have repositioned their defense. Wells over in left center, so the ball fell in. Now he's playing just about straight away, maybe just over the left shoulder of Scott Downs, so a step to right center field. I think good outfielders, and Vernon Wells, he's on the cover of their press guide this year, and won his first Gold Glove. He's former #1 draft choice, but you can see him pretty much straight away. So you either want to play right there or right there if you're a center fielder. If you overplay too much and you're pitching, you turn around, you go, boy, what if I make a good pitch down and away?
That's the first base sign, and it'll go foul.
So again, the good guys don't have to overplay as much.
Brian Roberts comes back. The triple was his 6th of the year, 39 doubles. He is second to Miguel Tejada in the two-bagger department. Among now the top 10, actually the league leaders with triples. Hitting .315. Roberts with an 0-2 count. The Downs delivery tries the breaking ball, but it's outside. Take a look at the Equity United Mortgage League leaders. Most doubles in a single season in Orioles history. Of course, this young man has it, and he strikes out as Brian Roberts becomes the 5th strikeout tonight for Scott Downs on the breaking ball.
24 more games, and right there, Brian Roberts, of course, he's got 39. The Shields, Delano coming over from the Dodgers, and of course Miguel, not 150 RBIs this year, but hitting over 300. Looks like he can still 30 home runs, very much in reach, even though he's only hit 6 home runs since June, I think 15th or somewhere in there.
And Miguel with 25 homers.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, for Melvin, what he'd like to do is, he started out the season 1 for 21. He'd like to have one of those hot streaks.
Melvin Mora struck out his first at bat, the 1-0 delivery, and just off the plate outside. 2 balls, no strikes for the Orioles third baseman.
You have to win 16 of the next 24 to get to 500, and on the road, and then they're in a period now where they're playing 16 of the stretch of 22 games on the road. And go to Seattle. They won the first 2 right after the All-Star break, and then lost 2 in a row. And they go to Texas. They won the first night and then gave up 9 and 10 runs. Sam Palazzo had just taken over as manager.
2-1 pitch to Mora. Breaking ball works its way around the plate. So 3 balls, 1 strike to the Orioles third baseman. Well, the Orioles, the next time they come home following the road trip to Seattle and Texas, they'll only be home for 3 days again. It'll be the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Then it's up to New York for 4. And Mora draws the walk. First free pass for Downs, and Melvin gets on with 2 out. And Miguel Tejada, who struck out his first look at this left-hander, will come up now with a chance to keep things alive here in the bottom of the third. Orioles trailing 1-0. Scott Downs, since the All-Star break, has made 8 starts. Appeared in 10 games, 2 wins, 2 losses, but the ERA is very good at 2.74 since the break. And the pitch to Tejada, a fastball strike.
Yeah, it gives up very few home runs too. So a lot of strikeouts, not a lot of walks, not a lot of hits. And has not given up 2 home runs. You got all the way back to the 5th of June, and that was against Oakland. Got a no decision in that game.
Mora from first base with 2 out. And that misses down and away. 1-1 to Miguel.
Yeah, Fred, you look back all the way into August, the only bad outing, and that could happen to anybody, and that was up against the Yankees. 3 1/3 innings, 8 hits, 4 runs, didn't give up any home runs.
Right now the Orioles trailing by a run, 1-0, 2 out, bottom of the 3rd. The 2-out walk has Melvin Mora at first base, and he gets back. Dave Cash coaching at first for the Birds, and of course the Demper, Rick Dempsey, at third base for Sam Perlazo. And Scott Downs working to a dangerous hitter in Miguel Tejada with a 1-ball, 1-strike count. And a breaking ball down and in, and Tejada makes the vicious cut, and he is down in the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes. That ball almost looks so tantalizing when it comes to the plate.
Well, a slider, and that's what had happened. It slides, and the good one, Scott Downs is kind of a 3/4. He's one of those guys that doesn't get his arm up that high, and that's fine. A lot of movement side to side. That slider will start, especially to a right-hander, will start in the inside corner and just keep coming. And the good ones, if you go back to Steve Carlton or Guidry or Sparky Lyle, Mike Flanagan had a good one. You think of a lot of the great left-handers, Mickey Lolich, it appears to be a ball or strike, and then it just comes right at your back foot.
Downs ahead of Tejada, 1-2. Mora at first, 2 gone. And a strike 3 called. A half dozen strikeouts in 3 innings for Scott Downs. Orioles lead Mora at first, 1-0 Toronto. Our AFLAC trivia question tonight: name the 4 Orioles with at least 20 home runs, 20 steals in the same season. Corey Koski leading off for the Blue Jays. They lead it 1-0. It was his sac fly to center field that brought in the only run of the ball game. 1 strike to Koski, who's DHing tonight for John Gibbons. 1 run on 1 hit for Toronto. The Orioles have no runs on 2 hits, but Scott Downs 6 strikeouts through 3 innings tonight. Miguel Tejada a strikeout twice in 2 at-bats. Outside, 1-1 to Corey. Koski, Hillenbrand, and Hinsky. That's the way the Blue Jays come to the plate against the 24-year-old right-hander John Mayne.
Good change up there. I'll tell you one thing, Ray Miller throw a lot of strikes. That's been a little bit of a trouble. Change speeds. He certainly do that, working quick, certainly doing that. But he is not afraid to use all his pitches. It really probably looks like to me he has a much better fastball tonight than he has in some of the games.
Struck him
right
out.
there, I mean, great movement.
Tonight's Bank of America American League Player of the Week, a guy who grew up an Orioles fan, now the great first baseman for the Texas Rangers, Mark Teixeira.
Yeah, another big home run last night, and now 100 home runs the last 3 years.
They have really gotten themselves quite a player in Mark Teixeira.
Yeah.
Switch hitter.
Well, nice young man, and good defensive player, great offensive player, gets it.
Out of Mount St. Joe.
Oh yeah, local guy.
1 ball, no strikes to Shea Hillenbrand. By the way, the Boston Red Sox have tied the Angels at Fenway in the bottom of the 3rd at 3. 1-1 now to Hillenbrand. A fly ball to Matos in center field to conclude the top of the 1st. Two and 1 to Shea. Cleveland winning at Detroit tonight in the bottom of the 4th. They have the Tigers 3-1. Mayne reaches back, drops it, and throws to first. He dropped it because he made a good stop going across the body with the glove. And dropping at his feet, had the easy play at first to get Hillenbrand for the second out.
Well, John's 6'4", so again, he falls off a little bit. Ball hit, made a great pitch with a low and away slider, so not hit particularly hard. Hillenbrand is not fleet of foot, so once you knock it down, you got plenty of time. There you go.
With 2 out, it's Eric Kinski now. Toward the foul line left field. Tejada over, Mora over, and it's the third baseman Mora for the final out. 3 up, 3 down for the Blue Jays here in the top of the 4th. They lead it 1-0. Now we get the answer to our AFLAC trivia question of the night. Name the 4 Orioles with at least 20 home run, 20 steals in the same season.
I have them. Okay. Brady, Brooks, Boog, and Clay Dalrymple. Fred, that was a joke. Brady's one of them.
I know. When you start talking Boog and Clay Dalrymple.
Don Baylor was one because he stole 50-some bases one year. I would assume maybe Flair, better known as Paul Blair, might have done it one year.
What about Frank? No. Pop up right side. Second baseman Hudson. First out as Gibbons is retired. Let's take a look. As we get the answer, we had a brief flash of it.
So it's not Brooks and Boog?
Let's see. Okay, name the 4 Orioles with at least, here we go. Paul Blair, Don Blair, Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, we knew it was Brady. 50 home runs that one year and 20-some steals, and then Blair.
There's Brian Roberts with 18 home runs.
8 of those home runs coming in April. And then, of course, what did Cal say last night? He talked to him about rediscovering the home run swing.
Javi Lopez 1 for 1 with a single, and who takes a fastball strike. Javi with the average at 293 over his last 29 games, hitting 342 for Javi. 3 home runs and 15 of his 41 runs driven in coming over that stretch. Outside, 1 ball 1 strike to the Orioles catcher. Alejandro Frade on deck, 1 out, and a 1-0 lead for the Blue Jays. It came in on a sac fly in the first inning. 1-2. Now the Red Sox have grabbed the lead at Fenway, bottom of the 3rd at 4-3. And the Yankees get on the board at Fenway with a Matsui home run in the bottom of the 4th. It's now a 4-1 Tampa Bay lead over New York. Here it's 1-0 Toronto, bottom of the 4th inning. And Javi Lopez with that breaking ball too tight. As the count even at 2 balls 2 strikes.
Yeah, we talked about the Red Sox. 47 wins, only 21 losses. The Yankees in the American League with 44 and a 25 at home. Over the National League, Atlanta 47 and 24. So as many wins, but 3 more losses. And then the only other team that's close, and that's Houston, the Astros, very much in the wild card. They beat the Phillies yesterday 2-1, but 28 and 40 on the road. That's been their nemesis.
Second consecutive 3-2 count to Javi Lopez. First time he singles. This time he reaches with a walk. Comcast Sportsnet coverage of Orioles baseball is brought to you by Russell Toyota. Visit the new Russell Toyota on Route 40 West today and become part of our family. By Ferris Baker Watts. We want your business. We'll earn your trust. And by Pennzoil. Give your engine what it wants, not just oil, but Pennzoil. So Javi Lopez on for a second time tonight. A single and a walk, and now Frade, who struck out his first look at Scott Downs, stands in. Into the right field corner. Lopez will stop at, no, he's being waved around. And the throw misses the cutoff man, and the Orioles have tied.
Yeah, good call, Fred, because I think Rick Dempsey coming down the line, if the ball does not go over Orlando Hudson, Reed Johnson have a little trouble here at Camden Yards. Very quirky down that right field line where the ground crew is. So a great at bat by Frade. Alejandro just looks for something away and just hits a BB down into the corner. And that ball's kind of running around. You can see Reed Johnson disappear. And here's Demper. He's kind of waiting, and come on, hurry. You're going to make it.
He's almost standing at home plate.
Yeah. Well, we saw that the first night. So there you go. Able to tie it up.
And the walk and the double. And the Orioles are at 1-1 with Toronto, with Frade at second for Eric Burns.
Well, that's the kind of approach you have to have. I mean, it was a pretty good pitch. But Alejandro Frede just looking away, figuring, okay, I'll look away. And, you know, maybe if he throws me a curveball, I'll speed up my bat a little bit. Otherwise, I'm content driving the ball to right field. And when you look there and you get it and you're big and strong like Alejandro, you can hit the ball hard, even though it was a pitcher's pitch. That wasn't a mistake.
Backhanded stop there by Zahn. Now Johnson's throw from that corner overthrew Orlando Hudson, his cutoff man. And that gave Broadway to the plate for Javi Lopez. And the Orioles 1 run on 3 hits now. Scott Downs working to Eric Burns. Burns reached on an error by the third baseman Hillenbrand, his first at bat. Burns with a 2-ball 1-strike count.
Well, it's always more difficult the second time through an order. Hitters are going to adjust, and they've seen the movement. They've picked up the speed of the ball out of your hand when you throw fastballs. So again, if you have 4 pitches, you're going to have to use them all.
Another nice pickup by Zahn, moving to his glove side left. So 3-1 to Burns. Chris Gomez waits on deck.
Hey, Greg Zahn, again, the nephew of Rick Dempsey, does a terrific job of blocking this ball. He's very much into being a very good defensive catcher. Always has. I mean, he's matured as an adult. You know, if you talk to him, married, settled down off the field. I mean, I think he prides himself in now having, for the first time, the ability to be a starting catcher.
Frede with the lead at second base. Orioles have tied here in the bottom of the 4th. 1-1 ball game. Line drive to left. Catalanado moves over. 2 out. And we take a look now at the Geico highlights, and the Orioles getting their leadoff man on in the first as well as the second inning, but couldn't do anything with that advantage.
Oh yeah, the leadoff triple in the first. And it gets more to Hott and Gibbons, and then in the second inning, right here, double play. Chris Gomez hits it sharply, but right at the second baseman Hudson, so they turn to double play.
Hey, Chris up now for his second look at Scott Downs. Frede at second base. His double driving in Javi Lopez for the Orioles run this inning. One and 0 to Gomez, the Orioles first baseman tonight.
And what you try to do as an offense, and it's easier to do this when you're getting good starting pitching from your starter, and that's the case tonight, is that every pitch when you're in a close game just takes a little more out of you, especially when you get runners in scoring position. There's a borderline low strike call. There are some nights where you can throw 90 pitches and they hit singles, and then there's some nights you can throw 90 pitches and some of them are doubles. And when they get out there in scoring position, I mean, that is the difference a lot of times between winning and losing, how well you can pitch. Sometimes it's about you, sometimes it's about good fortune, sometimes it's about good defense.
2 balls 1 strike now to Gomez. So Chris has a shot here to put the Orioles in front. 2 out. Frede from second. Up the middle, a diving stop by Adams. Comes back toward third, off the glove, and did it go into the dugout? It did. That will allow Frede to come in to score from third base to give the Orioles the lead.
Yeah, Russ Adams, he does what you're supposed to do if you're an infielder, and that is knock it down if you can't catch it. That ball up the middle. Once again, Chris Gomez hits one sharply. This time finds somewhat of a hole up the middle, and so Adams makes a very nice play catching it. Knows he doesn't have a play. And then Frede coming around the base, and Hillenbrand just doesn't make a very good play. Not a great throw, but we got a lot of time to make sure that ball doesn't get by you. But he's not able to do that. And again, it's almost like Hillenbrand wanted to stay on the bag. If it comes off the bag, he stops. Here comes Frede. Now all of a sudden, and he's very happy that Paul went in the dugout. He's been a little bit out of gas.
Well, it was in the first game of the series. A ball went into the dugout on a double play possibility for the Orioles that helped the Toronto Blue Jays. Now this ball goes into the Blue Jays dugout to help the Orioles, and they have grabbed the lead. 2 runs here in the bottom of the 4th. A single and an E6, no RBI for Chris Gomez. So second error of the night, the 24th error now for Russ Adams this season. The 83rd committed by the Blue Jays. Hillenbrand had an error earlier in the ballgame. Matos with a 1-ball no strike count. Fastball up 2-0 to Luis. Matos now 1 for his last 12. Matos this year has gone through many peaks and valleys. He'll get very hot and then get very cold. The consistency has not been at the plate for Luis this season. 4 home runs, 25 runs driven in. 3 of the 4 home runs have come against left-handed pitching.
A couple of years ago, hit 13 home runs, hit over 300. And you know, when you talk to Terry Crowley or even talk to Luis, just trying to stay inside the ball a little bit more, stay away from those kind of roller coaster rides where you're up and down. And you know, eventually, if you have good enough at bats and you hit the ball hard enough, even though it may be singles and doubles, eventually over the course of your career you can turn those into the home runs. But I think also when you hit 13 home runs in your first full year, all of a sudden you're on the radar screen. They pitch you a little bit differently. That doesn't mean you can't get hits. You maybe just don't get as many pitches to hit for home runs.
And also when you hit 13 home runs in your first big league career, they anticipate at least your organization building on that number.
Well, that's true, but what happens is that a lot of times you try to hit more home runs and the average goes down, and then by trying to do that you're not as good a hitter. We saw that with Melvin Moore when Tony Batista encouraged him to hit home runs.
And the walk to Matos.
See, and these are the little things. You're 1 for your last 12, as you mentioned, and you take a walk. So now all of a sudden the inability to maybe possibly tag Friday out. So there have been a couple of occasions the Orioles have gotten an extra out. Brad Arnsberg's going to come out and talk to Scott Downs, second time through the order, now into the 3rd time through the order. A little bit more of a rough ride.
And Brian Roberts with a triple and a swinging strikeout. In this inning, a 1-out walk to Lopez. Friday doubled into the right field corner. Then with 2 down, Gomez hit one up the middle. Nice stop by Russ Adams, the shortstop. But then Adams, as Friday went wide around third base, threw the ball away into the dugout of the Toronto Blue Jays, allowing the 2nd run to score. Gomez winds up at second base. The walk to Matos, and now Brian Roberts comes up with runners at 1st and 2nd.
And that is his 24th error.
So now Roberts with 2 down. You see Matos closest to you, and then at second base, Chris Gomez for the switch hitting second baseman Roberts. Wells over, and the center fielder makes the grab for the final out. The Orioles come up with 2 to grab the lead. 2-1 Orioles after 4. 9-11 for 21-31. Cal's Moment in Time, a documentary about Cal Ripken and the legendary moments leading up to his surprise surpassing Lou Gehrig's consecutive games record. These are the most dramatic nights of the 1995 baseball season, perhaps of any season. On MPT tomorrow night, it's TV worth watching. 1 strike to Greg Zahn. John Maine now with a lead, and Zahn has that bat out of the hands for a 2nd night. This one bounces off the top of the Oriole dugout, and a souvenir in the stands. The gentleman wants to know if Zahn wants the bat back. He says no, keep it, and he goes over to get a new piece of lumber.
Yeah, the 2nd straight night, the bat toss. Get going. Right there, fortunate, nice hands.
And Steve Jeppe, one of the part owners of the Orioles, good friend. That bat bouncing just beyond Steve. There's Steve. Yeah. And Steve talking about the trajectory of that bat.
And you know, it's something that he learned down at the Oriole fantasy camp, and not the first time they've thrown bats at him. Some of his teammates did it.
And fastball high.
Yeah, so we don't want to pop up with a man at third and less than 2 outs. Sometimes it can become very hostile down there.
Some competitive guys down there. Huh?
Are they?
Zahn with a 1-ball 2-strike count. The count evens 2 balls 2 strikes. Zahn grounded out to Brian Roberts. His first and only look at John Maine tonight. Maine has allowed 1 run on 1 hit. And that was a double to start the ball game by Adams. He later came in to score on the Corey Koski sac fly. The appeal to the third base umpire. Brian Gorman said no swing. Full count to the Toronto catcher, former Oriole Greg Zahn. John Maine looking for his 3rd win in his young career. 2-1 coming into play tonight. Zahn drives it down the right side, but foul. At home run distance.
Yeah. Well, Zahn doesn't hit too many home runs. He came into the season with 39 and 1,825 at bats. He is a switch hitter. And, we told you, well, this year, what, 2 from the right side when he hits from the right side of the plate, and 6 from this side. Well, that's what happens 3 and 2. Sometimes you take a little bit off to throw a strike and realize you can't do that. And there's a little bit more as it comes right back our way. Doesn't mean you don't throw your fastball. It just means that you just kind of don't
trying to be a little more precise.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is how you pitch in 1-run games. I mean, this is, to me, anytime you have a 2-1 lead going into the 5th inning, pretty critical time of the game. You know, again, we've talked about the Orioles making some adjustments now that they've seen Scott Downs 2 to 3 times. Brian Roberts has already seen him 3 times. 2nd time through the order for Toronto. You know, so far, Maine using all his pitches, but only commanding the fastball.
Again, a foul ball. So it will continue 3 balls 2 strikes to Greg Zahn. Reed Johnson, then Orlando Hudson to follow the Toronto catcher.
We've already seen Russ Adams late on the fastball, got a slider to hit that double and scored the only run. So he's right here. Javi's saying shake it off just to maybe confuse him, even though you're probably going to throw another fastball.
And Zahn will not be denied on this one. Out onto the flag court, home run, a 2-2 ball game as Greg Zahn hits his 9th home run of the season, his 52nd RBI, and the 13th run driven in for Zahn against his one-time team, the Orioles.
Well, Greg Zahn, you know, he prides himself in being prepared. Now, you prepare yourself as a catcher to help your pitching staff, but as a hitter, you got to figure he's been watching. The only pitch he's really gotten over is the fastball. And he sees, what, 3-4 in a row and doesn't miss the 4th one.
So the scramble out on the flag court for the Souvenir, a tie ball game. For Toronto, just their 2nd home run in their last 13 games.
They went 69 innings till Frank Menachino hit one on Friday night.
And another shot. This one pulled left side. Burns sprinting toward the ball, but Reed Johnson will go standing in at second base with his 18th double.
Just going to be a slider that ends up in the middle of the plate. Watch, you speed up the bat by throwing a slider. You can see him just out of front just a little bit. But then again, right there, all of a sudden the bat hit gets to it, so it's into the corner for a double.
Well, we talked about John Maine and his 100 pitches in his last start, that win against the Boston Red Sox. And here's how he's doing tonight as we play here in the 5th. Orlando Hudson, a swinging strikeout. Bounces it toward the middle and on into center field. A base hit. Johnson will come in, and the Blue Jays have grabbed the lead. 3-2. Well, the Orioles with 2 in the bottom of the 4th to take a 2-1 lead for John Maine to the top of the 5th inning. Still no one down here in the 5th. A leadoff home run by Zahn, a double by Johnson, and now a base hit up the middle by Hudson, and they have the 3-2 lead.
Yeah, just a little changeup hit back up the middle. So again, that wasn't a bad pitch. Slider hung, the fastball, trying to not walk him leading off the inning. So you can kind of look for reasons why they've been able to get these hits. And again, when you don't get a whole lot of offense, sometimes those types of pitches can be huge.
And Ray Miller on the phone out to the bullpen. We'll see who scrambles to start throwing. Top of the order, and Russ Adams, a double and a run scored in 2 at-bats. Hudson at first base. And there goes Hudson to second. Throw on the shortstop side. And Orlando Hudson with his 7th steal in 8 attempts this season. The 56th steal for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Again, just knowing your scouting staff. John Maine, not a lot of experience. Hudson never really has run a lot in years past. This year doesn't run a lot, but very successful when he does. There is stolen base number 7. Ray Miller's going to come out and talk to John Maine.
Jorge Julio has begun to warm up in the Oriole bullpen here in the top of the 5th. No one out. Runner in scoring position. Hudson at second base, and 2 runs in for the Blue Jays as they regain the lead by 1, 3-2. And now the conversation. Ray Miller out to talk to Javi Lopez, John Maine, and Miguel Tejada involved in that. Mark Carlson, home plate umpire, will break it up.
Yeah, the difficulty for John, and again a young pitcher at only 24, is that he doesn't really, almost everything he throws is between 83 miles per hour and 91 miles per hour. So it's kind of in that comfort zone. So if you're in the middle of the plate, and that's where he's been this inning, they're going to be able to time him. He's got a slow curveball, but doesn't command it well. And again, you don't get a lot of runs, you probably feel uncomfortable throwing it.
That will get the runner to third base, and that's the first out of the inning. Now let's head down to Brett Harris, who's with us tonight.
Well, Fred, as you know, many have been affected by Hurricane Katrina. There are a few Orioles who come from the areas that were hit down south. B.J. Ryan is from Louisiana. Eric Dubose is from Alabama. Both said that they just sustained some high winds. Everybody is okay down there. Now, Walter Young, who grew up in Purvis, Mississippi, is living now in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He said that they don't have any electricity still down in Hattiesburg, and where his parents live in Purvis, they don't have electricity or running water. Now, Walter brought his wife up here to Baltimore and is also trying to bring his parents up here as well. And Fred, this is a kid that was just called up to the major leagues a week ago, and as he should be enjoying his first trip to the major leagues, this is something he's had to deal with over the last week or so.
Now, certainly a lot on the mind of the big guy, and thanks for that report, Brent. Had his first major league at bat last night and walked on a 3-2 pitch, and pitch outside, 2 balls, 1 strike. Let's take a look at guys who have been affected, the Gulf Coast connection, as we call it.
And of course, Rafi rehabbing and now lives in Texas, went to college down in Mississippi.
3-1 to Frank Catalanato. Catalanato has walked his previous 2 at bats. Oriole infield in with that runner at third and 1 out. And he goes after that one.
Well, he knows. Fly ball, hit it hard, infield in. Certainly makes you a better hitter. And it's always a difficulty, whether you're a veteran or a young pitcher like John Maine. What do you do here? You don't want to give Catalanato just anything to hit, because you look on deck and you see Vernon Wells. If you walk him, if you're young and you're having a tough inning, already 2 runs in, you may not even stay in the game. And if you're a veteran, of course, you probably figure, well, you know what, if I make my pitch, if I don't, then I'll try to throw the double play. But John Maine, he may be gone. So it's a tough situation to be in.
Catalanato slices it. Burns in, shallow left field. And Hudson breaks toward the plate, but then retreats to third. So 2 out. And Hudson still 90 feet away for Vernon Wells.
Yeah, real nice job there. Got him out with a breaking ball.
Vernon Wells tonight has continued his struggles. Now 1 for his last 13. He's had a difficult time at the plate. And his average at .272.
Well, if you're Sam Palazzo, Fred, don't you think you learn a lot about a young pitcher like John Maine in situations like this? You know, a lot of youngsters, you know, all of a sudden they got a 1-run lead. Now it's down, and you know they got you on the ropes. And you know what? You're frustrated. You're disappointed. Heart feels like it's down somewhere where your spikes are, and it's easy to hang your head.
You call it fortitude, moxie.
Well, yeah, you know, mound presence, whatever you want to call it. Look at that 21-31. You hope you don't wear your emotions on your sleeve. Let them know that they got you. And you're right into the heart of the lineup.
Wells, the number 3 hitter tonight for John Gibbons. Hudson at third base. 2 runs in for the Blue Jays. They've grabbed a 1-run 3-2 lead. 2 out. And Vernon Wells in the midst of a slump at the plate. And he is ahead. Maine is ahead of Wells now. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Came in with a slider. Foul back coming up our way and just beneath us. So Vernon Wells again will get back in the batter's box, looking at a 1 ball, 2 strike count. John Maine working from the first base side of the slab. Jorge Julio ready in the bullpen if needed. Orlando Hudson at third base. 2 runs in for the Blue Jays, and now Wells with a 1 ball, 2 strike count, 2 gone. And they get him. Well, John Maine, after giving up 2 runs, comes up big against Catalinato, and now Wells 3-2 Toronto. And they have the lead once again by a run. Melvin Mora, Miguel Tejada, and Jay Gibbons for the Orioles here in the bottom of the 5th. Big breaking ball misses. Mora has struck out and walked. Couple of runs on 4 hits for the Orioles. 3 runs on 4 against John Maine for the Jays. Up the middle, Hudson there. Here's the jump pass throw to first base, and they get Melvin Mora, looking like a quarterback in football throwing the jump pass. Well, Orlando Hudson
looking like Roberto Alomar, who kind of patented that play up in Toronto. Started in San Diego. Won about 11 Gold Gloves. And of course, we told you about Orlando, who was the 43rd round draft choice, 1,280th player chosen. The last 2 years, more assists than any other player. Plays on AstroTurf or Rogers Center's turf, whatever they call it up there, and has great range. And there's an illustration.
It was amazing the velocity he had on that throw. Right field corner goes Reed Johnson, and Johnson slips, and Tejada will go to second base. He's headed to third. So the Orioles get a break there as Tejada winds up at third base on a ball that should have been out number 2.
Well, we talked about the other day. You talked about the ball in the dugout. It looked like Javi Lopez couldn't decide because you don't want to dive on this rubberized warning track. But again, the wind getting the ball here, and then he goes down. He just slides. I don't know what kind of shoes, but they appear to be the wrong one. And Luchasaurus, you know, talking one of the Orioles upper management talking about, hey, if we need a change of the cinders, it might be something you think about. I've never understood why they don't have cinder track here anyway. You know, if it gets wet, it's slippery. If it's dry, we just saw it slippery.
And a swing and a miss by Gibbons. Gibbons 0 for 2. Third check and triple for the Orioles tonight, and the 5th for Miguel Tejada this year. Orioles now with 5 hits. Infield in for the Blue Jays, trying to protect their 1-run lead at 3-2.
And you got a strikeout guy on the mound already with 6 strikeouts. Gibbons down on strikes his first time up.
And then not this time, as the Orioles have tied. Jay Gibbons sending it right back up the middle. It's a 3-3 ball game. Gibbons with RBI 62. Now, instead of having 2 down, the Orioles had that runner at third base, and they take advantage of it.
Well, you talked about how hot Jay Gibbons has been. 4 home runs in what now the last 10 games. So right there, doesn't get a home run, but hits a vicious liner back up the middle. So really a gift run here for the Orioles, and they'll be glad to take it.
And there have been times this year when the Orioles have been presented gifts and not been able to take advantage of it. Tonight they do. And now Javi Lopez has been on base twice, a single, a walk, and he scored a run tonight. Has a chance with Gibbons at first. Javi toward right center. Wells on the run. He won't catch it. All the way to the wall. Gibbons will race around third base. Gibbons to the plate. He slides, and the Orioles have the lead, 4-3. Javi Lopez with a double to score Jay Gibbons, and the Orioles have answered the Toronto Blue Jays 2 runs with 2 of their own to lead it 4-3 here in the bottom of the 5th.
Yeah, Javi Lopez now 4 RBIs, and you can see once again not a bad pitch, but great approach. Wells playing a couple of steps to left field. Gibbons on the run, and Rick Dempsey at third waving him in. So Javi forced RBIs the last 2 evenings. And the game's only about half over tonight.
Now 19 doubles for Javi and 42 RBI. Here's Alejandro Frade, who doubled in Javi Lopez last inning when the Orioles grabbed that lead at 2-1, but then lost it in the top of the 5th, but now have regained a 1-run lead. Javi back to the bag at second base as Adams kind of snuck in behind the base runner. 4 runs, 7 hits for the Orioles. They've had a triple, a single, and a double. Back to back to back here in the 5th. 1 ball to Alejandro. Alejandro Frade, one of several players from Venezuela involved in the games, and apparently there's a broadcast group from Venezuela here doing interviews with players from the country. And a pitch inside. Of course, Melvin Mora from Venezuela, and
Gustavo Chachin, who actually they were kind of hanging out by the batting cage today. He said, yeah, we work out together all winter long, and Chachin pitched a very good game. Won his 12th game on Labor Day on Monday.
Well, veteran right-hander Pete Walker beginning to throw now in the bullpen for the Toronto Blue Jays, as Brad Arnsberg, the pitching coach, out once again to talk to Scott Downs.
Well, you make a pretty good pitch, and Reed Johnson loses his balance and slips out on the warning track. That turns out to be a triple. Great approach by Jay Gibbons. And you make a pretty good pitch to Javi Lopez. You get an idea of how strong he is. He reaches out, and with almost one hand, hits it about 370 feet to the gap in right center field. And if you're Scott Downs, you're saying, you know what, I'm really not pitching that poorly, but I got a chance to give up 3 runs here, maybe more.
Falling behind 2-0 to Frade. Now it's 3 balls, no strikes to the Orioles designated hitter. Javi Lopez.
Excuse me, Fred. Yeah, if you're John Gibbons and you're managing the Blue Jays and you look at Eric Burns, who's not hitting right-handers, are you thinking maybe of bringing in Pete Walker?
Frade gets the green light, 3-0.
And leaves Earth. It's the old baseball term, 3-0. He helicoptered. He left Earth. He started swinging when the ball left his hand.
88-mile-an-hour fastball up, and he fouled it back.
Gibbons, yeah. Actually, John Gibbons, Sammy Perlazzo managed him when Double-A. Gibbons, of course, a #1 draft choice. I said, Sammy, I said, did you think back then that John Gibbons was going to be a manager? He said, no, but here it does come John Gibbons. He said, but I did know that John Gibbons was not only a good player, but a smart catcher. So right now, I guess his best instinct is to go to the bullpen.
And that will bring the evening to an end early for Scott Downs. He leaves with runners at first and second. Orioles on top of the Blue Jays 4-3, and the right-handed bat of Eric Burns scheduled for the Orioles. So Pete Walker, the veteran right-hander, comes on as the left-hander leaves, and this, of course, the Russell Toyota call to the bullpen. Top of the 5th inning, the Orioles have come back to grab a 1-run lead and still have things going on here in the bottom of the 5th as they have chased the left-hander Scott Downs.
And there it is, the Pulte Holmes pitching summary. Defense let him down a little bit. A lot of strikeouts, walks, a chance for the Orioles maybe to add a couple of more as Pete Walker comes on, and he's had a pretty good year. I was talking to him the other day, and I said, you know, how's your shoulder? He's had shoulder, elbow surgery. And he said, you know what? I found out if you throw about 91, that's very hittable. But if you throw 88 below the hittable range, or you throw 94, 95, you have a chance. So, you know, a guy, former starter, they picked him up out of the Mets AAA, where he won 14 games down at AAA. And J.P. Ricciardi coming in and saying, here's a guy that can spot start, pitch out of the bullpen. So again, not overpowering. Curveball, slider, changeup.
1 ball, no strikes to Eric Burns. He's reached on an error and flied out that against the departed left-hander, the starter, Scott Downs. And now 1 ball, 1 strike. Orioles tonight 2 for 2 with runners in scoring position. And of course, since the All-Star break, they have really struggled with that average of runners in scoring position. Burns comes up with Javi Lopez at second base and Friday at first. 2 runs in for the Birds. Jay Gibbons with an RBI single. Javi Lopez a double to drive in a run. Then the walk to Friday. And now Burns with a 1 ball, 1 strike count. One and 2 to Eric. Eric Burns has not had a hit in his last 15 at bats.
He really needs, you know, he's hit a couple balls hard over that, well, more than a couple, but it just seems like right now when he does hit the ball well, they're standing right in front of it. What he may need, kind of what Hillenbrand had on Labor Day, just kind of you know, get jammed or hit one off the end, find a hole, get yourself an RBI, give the Orioles another run.
That's going to be a routine fly ball for Vernon Wells. 2 gone. And Chris Gomez will come up. Gomez singled in a run last inning in the 4th when the Orioles scored twice. And Chris was a ground ball up the middle that Adams made a dive for. He stopped the ball, but then threw back as they thought they could get Friday, who had made the wide turn at third. The ball bounded beyond the reach of third baseman Shea Hillenbrand into the dugout. Friday scored, and Gomez wound up at second base. Chris now with runners at first and second, 2 out. Hit well, Catalinato makes the grab. Outstanding running catch by the left fielder Catalinato. It was over his head. He made a little bit of a leap, reached up and took it away, but the Orioles scored 2. They take the lead 4-3 after 5. Red Cross Relief Fund and help those affected by Hurricane Katrina. Orioles wives have been collecting fan donations at the gates this evening, and we thank all of those who have been generous. Call 1-800-HELP-NOW, 1-800-HELP-NOW, or log on to www.redcross.org or MLB.com to see how you can help. 4-3, Orioles lead it, and there's the graphic for you, the number for you to call. And John Maine leaves after 5 innings with the lead at 4-3, and he gives way to Jorge Julio.
Yeah, the Orioles hoping that, again, we talk about roller coaster rides. You know, it's been one of those years. Let's see, first 14 appearance, 1 run in 15 in the 3rd innings, running each of the next 4 outings, and then 9 out of 10 scoreless. But over the last 32 innings, 31 runs. So again, just don't know what you're going to get. Stuff is there. Sometimes the command not. And a chance to possibly get a save, and John Maine possibly a win.
Chris Gomez will go to the bag, sprinting to beat Koski for the out. So 1 down as Julio retires Corey Koski. Well, tonight on Sports Night, presented by PricewaterhouseCoopers, you'll have Ravens questions, a Marlins Nats recap, and of course a Hokies update. That's tonight on Sports Night on Comcast Sports Net. Well, when John Maine picked up the win at Fenway Park against the Boston Red Sox, he received some good work out of his bullpen. And that's what he's looking for tonight. Swing and a fly to right field. Jay Gibbons, as Shea Hillenbrand hits it high, but right just about to the right fielder, Jay Gibbons. Here's John Maine in the dugout now, watching to see how things go in Boston. Eric Dubose pitched a scoreless inning. Chris Ray a scoreless inning. Steve Klein a scoreless 2/3. Williams a scoreless third, and B.J. Ryan gave up 2 hits in the ninth, but B.J. Ryan also did not allow a run to the Boston Red Sox as the Orioles beat the Red Sox that night 7-3, and John Maine improved to 2-1.
And we saw it against Oakland, 2 quick outs, and then all of a sudden Jorge will have a little problem with his command, and then he'll maybe give up a walk or a base hit, and then a couple of things happen. But if you go back to the 5th inning, John Maine, a home run, double, single, and then somehow with a runner on third, got Catalanato to pop up down the left field line, able to get out of trouble, and now has a chance to win. And again, you talk about young pitchers. A lot of young guys, it's not that they throw in the towel. They just go, hey, well, the world's crashing me around, but this kid, I didn't command all the stuff, but he knows how to pitch.
Eric Kinski down the left field side, but Burns on the sprint makes the grab in foul ground, and it's a 3-up, 3-down inning for Julio against the Blue Jays top of the 6th. Orioles lead it 4-3. Presented by authority of the Orioles and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Orioles. And the Orioles right now with a 1-run lead. Bottom of the 6th inning. Luis Matos leading off against Pete Walker, and Matos looks at the ball low. Matos 0 for 1 with a walk tonight. Hitting in the number 9 slot for Sam Perlaza. Matos. Then we go to the top of the order, Robertson, Mora.
Yeah, how about the catch that Catalanato made? I mean, it's about as good a catch you're ever going to see a left fielder make. He's got to be disappointed. It kind of tells you how you can help your team when you're sometimes struggling with a bat. He's an awfully good hitter. Best runners in scoring position numbers. Doesn't get the runner in from third base with less than 2 outs, and then saves 2 runs by making an over the head catch. It looked like the glove was the size of a cesta. Of course, Frank came up with the Tiger leg. He was a former infielder.
And it is a glove.
Yeah, that's not an infielder's glove. That's an outfielder's glove now.
And Matos with that foul tap. Brady's glove used to be a little long as well.
Yeah.
That's you get for every advantage you can get as long as it's within limits.
Yes. Armor.
Yeah.
Chris Frank used to. I think he grew up in the Tampa Bay area, and they play a lot of high lie down there. They use the cesta. Give me something big.
Yeah. And Matos is a strikeout for the first out. Well, the Maryland Tourism sights and sounds from this final game of the 3-game series.
Hola. Hey, how you doing, man? Good, good. Yeah, I'm all right.
Pow. That's what Miguel Tejada wants to see off the bats. Pow.
Yeah, that may be that crew that you were talking about from Venezuela.
Right.
And you always want to bring a nice-looking young lady to make sure that you'll get the interview.
Yeah, you don't find too many of the ball players saying no, do you? Ryan Roberts has tripled, also struck out and flied out today. And 2 balls, no strikes. Well, a young lady from Venezuela talking to Melvin Mora. And of course,
she's, of course, asking how the kids and the Quints and all that, and saying quite good. So you were up here, I know that, because I was down.
You were down there listening. And Catalanato couldn't get to that one. Long run for Catalanato with a left-handed batter at the plate.
Well, 3 years of high school Spanish, and I was like Ross Perot, all ears.
You were eavesdropping.
Yes, I was.
Yes, you were.
From afar.
Now, did she ask you if you would be interviewed?
She said, didn't you used to be Jim Palmer? Right. Yes, yes, that was the case.
2 balls and 1 strike to Bryant.
How'd you know that? That's what I want to know.
Pete Walker, second pitcher tonight for the Blue Jays. Scott Downs went 4 1/3. Gave up the 4 runs to the Orioles. 3 of them earned. 7 hits, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks for the left-hander. And now Pete Walker's fallen behind Bryan. 3 balls, 1 strike. Catalinato on the run again, and this time a little bit easier catch for Catalinato.
Yeah, that's pretty routine for him after that over-the-shoulder grab.
Yeah, that's the second out.
I think he might have lost that one in the lights. You know, it's funny. You don't see that happen in center or right. At Memorial Stadium, Don Baylor, never a great throwing arm because of the football injury, but big guy, and it just seemed he was the wrong height to play left field. And not that he will lose that many, but he, always dodging and ducking, and that's pretty routine. And ball might be knuckling a little bit more than it's hard to tell sometimes, but sometimes the reaction by the outfielder will give you that indication.
Melvin Mora drives it deep to left. Catalinato watches it hit the ball.
It's only got to be a single, He's busy. Busy couple of innings out there.
Yeah, Melvin Mora with his first hit. Let's take a look at the Geico highlights and go back to the Orioles' 5th when they regained the lead.
Well, it all starts right here. I mean, Gibbons is going to get him in after the triple off the bat of Tejada, and then the double up the gap. I'll be just reaching out, a long run all the way from first for Jay Gibbons.
And now Miguel Tejada, who had that triple start things off for the Orioles, a triple that Reed Johnson was about to catch and then had his feet slip out on the rubberized warning track in right field, and Tejada running all the way went to third base, and there's ball 1 to Miguel. Jason Frazier, the right-hander, begins to throw in the bullpen for the Blue Jays. Over at the knees for a strike.
Yeah, if you're John Gibbons and you manage Toronto, you have so many options. You got Jason Frazier. He's come in and 3 of 31 runners have in scoring position have scored. You have Benny Chalk. We saw him. You also got Justin Spire. And Pete Walker, more of kind of one of those maybe long guys.
1-1 to Tejada. 2 balls, 1 strike.
Splitter,
Well, tonight for Miguel Tejada, game number 895 consecutively, and he ties one of baseball's all-time greats in that consecutive games played. Stan the Man Musial.
Yeah, well, Stan the Man, a Hall of Famer. He actually, he's about 81 now. Came in the last couple of nights of the induction ceremony this year. He was up there.
Great St. Louis Cardinal.
Oh, was he ever. Played his whole career there. As we mentioned last night, 3,630 hits.
When the Orioles used to train in St. Petersburg, they shared that facility in St. Pete with the Cardinals, and the apartment that I rented during spring training was on the same floor with Stan Musial. He was one of the most gracious people you ever want to be around.
Did he play the harmonica for you?
No, he didn't. He didn't invite me up to the apartment to do that. But anybody that would ask him for an autograph, he'd smile and have that ball in hand. Third baseman Hillenbrand to second for the force out, and the final out of the inning as they get more up. That's it for the Birds. Bottom of the 6th. We head to the 7th. Orioles ahead by 4-3. Covered on that road trip. Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon from Seattle. Then it's to Texas and Arlington with the Rangers. So the Orioles have their longest road trip remaining coming up. Zahn went out onto the flag court against John Maine back in the 5th inning. His 9th home run of the year. 1 for 2 tonight. 4-3, Orioles lead it. And that foul ball into the stands. 1 ball, 1 strike to Gregg. Jorge Julio retired the Blue Jays in order, getting Koski, Hillenbrand, and Hinsky in the 6th inning. Now it's Zahn, Johnson, and Hudson for the Oriole right-hander. Steve Klein, a left-hander, throwing in the pen.
Yeah, I think maybe Chris Ray up also, the right-hander. Take a look, and of course, you're at the time where you want a sequence. There is Chris Ray, number 37. Steve Klein, and struggled a little bit on Monday, but didn't get a call. And that flat slider that lefties love. We saw Russell Adams lead off the game with one and hit a double down into the corner, scored the first run. Yeah, I think at some point Jorge Julio, somebody's going to teach him a split fingered fastball or something that will look like his fastball, because his slider just the last couple of years for some reason hadn't been very consistent. There's one, and he bounces it. And again, when everything is somewhere between 95 and 85, you're looking hard. And if he leaves in the middle of the plate, you just kind of get into a rhythm. That splitter would give him a pitch that would go down. He'd get more grounders, and most likely, if he learns how to throw it and it doesn't bother his arm, get some strikeouts. Needs a third pitch.
Zahn lifts it towards center. Matos with the long strides over. Take a look now at our Ford in-game box for the Blue Jays, who trail by a run here in the 7th inning.
Well, early lead. Russ Adams with that double, and you know, they were able to get the run in early, and then Greg Zahn with a home run. Doesn't hit too many of them, 9 on the year. But some key outs by John Maine, especially Catalanato. 5th inning runner at third base and only 1 out, able to get him to hit a pop fly to short left field.
Strike one to Reed Johnson. Johnson, following the Zahn home run, doubled, and then he was brought home by the Hudson single. And that gave the Blue Jays at the time a lead. And it'll drop in front of Matos. A 2-hit night for Reed Johnson, now 2 for 3. And Orlando Hudson will come up. Hudson, a strikeout and a single. Also a stolen base tonight. 270 the average for the switch hitting second baseman.
I think the one thing you have to understand is every situation, if you have a little speed against Jorge Julio, is a running situation. 1 run down. So again, if maybe you don't steal a lot of bases, but against Jorge, who doesn't hold runners very well, if you think you're going to make it, we've already seen Hudson. He didn't hesitate against John Maine in 1 iota.
Following the switch hitter Hudson, you've got the left-handed bats of Adams and Catalanato.
They are 8 for 8 against Jorge Julio. And then what happens if you're John Gibbons, and if you have somebody who can run a little bit, what happens? You just change the whole kind of rhythm of Jorge, and then maybe you don't get the stolen base, but you get him thinking about it, and then he gets a little bit quick to the plate. They always want him to slow down. Starts jerking the head a little bit.
And another base hit. Ball overrun by Matos. That will allow Johnson to go to third.
Yeah, the play right in front of you. So if you're Reed Johnson, you're going to stop at second base. There's going to be an error, the first one for the Orioles. And you can see Luis not very happy. So Reed Johnson right in front. He just kind of routined it, looked up. Once you don't catch it, Reed Johnson, smart base runner, he just takes off.
So the left-handed bat of Russ Adams scheduled, and Sam Palazzo goes to the mound. He's had Steve Klein warming up, but it looks like it's going to be Chris Ray.
And there is your Domino's Pizza delivery. And it's just a fastball out over the plate, and that's going to be everything for Jorge tonight. So good last inning and struggling here in the 7th.
So the Russell call to the bullpen. The young right-handed Chris Ray coming out of the pen on Sports Night after the game. So Chris Ray, the right-hander, comes out of the bullpen, and the left-handed bats of Adams and Catalanato for the Toronto Blue Jays. Jays have runners at first and third and 1 down. The left-hander Klein continuing to throw in the Oriole bullpen.
Yeah, a couple of things. It'll be interesting. Hudson already with a stolen base. So Chris Ray comes in. There are the numbers. He did pitch against the Blue Jays on Monday. Hadn't allowed a run in his last 7 innings. So you'll see. It'll be interesting to see what kind of offensive strategy John Gibbons, the manager of the Blue Jays, had.
Fastball misses outside. 1-0.
You know, if you go back to last year, and this is St. Louis, the National League, Klein would have come in, and lefties only like 12 for 84. They hit about 143, but this year Steve has struggled against left-handers.
Base hit to right field, and this ball game is tied.
Well, Russ Adams can hit. He came up at the end of last year. He's about 3 years removed from Auburn University. No doubt about it. But this guy is a pretty good offensive player.
You're talking about Steve Klein and his struggles against lefties this year. Klein has allowed left-handed batters to hit a .326 mark against him. And now another left-handed batter, and the right-hander Ray will try to get Catalanato with runners at first and second.
And of course Steve is wondering why he's up. I mean, that's what you'd be thinking.
Fastball, strike one. 96 from Chris Ray. Hudson speed at second base. Adams at first. And we have a 4-4 ball game. Top of the 7th inning. And another base hit. Hudson will be waved around. Gibbons with a good arm. The throw to the plate, and safe at the plate is the slide of Hudson. And the Blue Jays have the lead. Hudson may be hurt. It's a 5-4 lead. Hudson in that first base side batter's box. Looked like he had that leg extended back behind the body on the slide. And we'll see what has taken place for Orlando Hudson.
Well, just a flat slider, and Catalanato doesn't miss it. And here's your good throw from Gibbons. As Fred Manfred told you, strong arm, good throw. You really don't see anything. Maybe he just catches his leg or gets it pinned behind him. Yeah, see, he might have caught that left spike, and that's hopefully it's not anything serious with that ankle. But watch him just get across the plate, and then it looks like the spikes kind of dig in. Couldn't get that left leg up in the air, and you can see him grab the ankle. So that is obviously the injury. Hope it's not serious.
Let's see. Oh, the leg twists right there. And grimacing and grabbing is Hudson, and the trainer out to look at that left leg of Orlando Hudson, who is in obvious pain.
Well, if it's anything, you hope it's a sprain. Going as hard as you can and just catching the spikes. They're trying to avoid Javi Lopez. You can see Javi slide over, but can throw just a little late. And
being helped off is Orlando Hudson, and he has scored the go-ahead run for the Blue Jays as they keep the weight off that left foot. And Ray Miller's going to go out to talk to Chris Ray, but you hope that it's nothing serious for a fine young ball player in Orlando Hudson. Well, let's take a look now at the Just for Men hair color rejuvenating play, and we go back to the 5th inning, and the left fielder.
Yeah, the Orioles trying to add a run or two here, and there is Frank Catalanato, former infielder. He's all over this line drive, so a fine running catch, and then he comes back and just gets the go-ahead base hit right here in the 7th inning.
And that's the Just for Men hair color rejuvenating play. Just for Men, more than a hair color, it's the rejuvenator. So Chris Ray is coming on and giving up back-to-back RBI singles to Adams and Catalanato. Adams now at second base, Catalanato at first, and that brings up Vernon Wells, the right-handed batter. And it's a 5-4 lead for the Blue Jays. Twos been the preference scoring tonight. After the Jays scored 1 in the first, the Orioles put 2 on the board in the 4th. Blue Jays 2 in the 5th. Orioles again 2 more in the 5th, and now so far 2 here in the 7th. And Vernon Wells involved in a big slump. 1 for his last 14 at the plate. He struck out his last at bat. He was the final batter that John Maine faced tonight.
And of course he hopes he gets what the last 4 Blue Jay hitters have gotten, and that's balls right in the middle of the plate. You know, it started off with Jorge Julio. Reed Johnson single to center. Fastball pretty much belt high, and then Hudson fastball belt high over the plate. And then Chris Ray comes in. Fastball right down the middle to Adams, and then a slider right to the bat of Catalanato. So they've had 4 good pitches to hit, and they have hit it.
1-1 now to the center field.
And usually when you go back and look at your innings and you look at the position, a lot of times you can't tell on the mound. You say, well, that wasn't that bad a pitch. And then you go back and look, and it's pretty much down the middle of the plate.
2-1 to Vernon Wells. Adams at second base, Catalanato at first. Each team with 8 hits, but the Blue Jays with that 5-4 lead. There you see the base runners, and Wells with a 2-ball 1-strike count, 1 gone. Three and 1 now to Vernon Wells with the left-handed batting Corey Koski on deck, and Steve Klein, the left-hander, still throwing in the Oriole bullpen. Youngster Chris Ray reached the side from Javi Lopez.
Good pitch right there because it surprises him. He's looking fastball, and he throws him a 3-1 slider.
Full count now to Wells.
And by doing that, Vernon can't sit on any particular pitch here.
And he walks to load the bases for Corey Koski. Adams goes to third, Catalanato to second, Wells to first.
One of those subtle things as you look right there, Javi Lopez, because it's 3-2, he comes up in front of the umpire. The pitch not that far from being an out, and Steve Klein, the only buddy up in the Oriole bullpen. Sam Palazzo, so he will finally come in, and so Jorge Julio here and Chris Ray, the Blue Jays now with 5 consecutive runners reaching base.
And Steve Klein comes out of the bullpen as we get the Russell call to the bullpen. Many of those games still available. Call 888-848-BIRD or log on to Orioles.com. Help fill Camden Yards. And the Red Sox and the Yankees come to town. Final homestand of the season. Right now, some hot water for the Orioles. They've given up their lead. They trail 5-4. Steve Klein with the bases loaded, and Corey Koski coming to the plate.
Boy, you finally get the lefty-lefty matchup, and you know, Steve, he faced the Blue Jays on Monday, gave up a run, couple of hits, a walk, questionable ball strike. Mike DeMuro calling a lot of low strikes, about the only one he didn't call. Kind of put Steve in a problem. So last year, very effective against left-handers. This year, lefties have hit 300 or more all year long. Right near, has to make a pitch. And of course, what does Corey Koski want to do? He wants to, you know, get a run in, maybe get a base hit. Of course, the Blue Jays trying to make it 9 out of the, or actually make it what, 10 out of the 19 and wins. It's all tied at 9-9. Get closer to 500.
Koski this year 0 for 3, or I should say hitting .214, 0 for 3 in his career against Steve Klein. He has a teammate at every base. Already 2 runs in for the Blue Jays, just 1 out. And Koski drills it, but Gibbons will get over, make the grab, tagging, and coming in to score the 3rd run of the inning and the 6th of the ball game for the Blue Jays is Russ Adams. So Koski picks up his 2nd RBI tonight, both on sac flies.
Yeah, he got a great pitch to hit, just a high slider. Steve Klein, the finger surgery, had a nerve problem in his pitching hand, and he's had trouble with the slider. Got away with one there. That could have easily been a grand slam when you hang a slider, so he didn't make the pitch that he wanted to. They do get the out, but they get a run, and of course Toronto certainly with their bullpen is going to like that.
So Klein gets the batter, but the sac fly, and Todd Williams comes on as we get another Russell call to the bullpen.
Welcome back to Camden Yards in the top of the 7th, where the Jays now have a 2-run lead over the Orioles, 6-4. And as we told you earlier tonight, the Oriole players and Oriole wives got together before tonight's game to help out those affected by Hurricane Katrina, collecting money for the Red Cross effort. Now, they were at all the gates, and they did a great job. Orioles tell us tonight that they won't know the exact amount until tomorrow, but Major League Baseball will match up to $1 million. Not only the funds collected here tonight, but from all the Major League ballparks around the league. Also, at home, if you didn't get a chance, certainly to come down here tonight and donate, you can at 1-800-HELP-NOW. You may notice throughout the game the signage behind home plate that has been donated, and you can see that throughout the night at 1-800-HELP now. Fred?
Thank you, Brent, for those very important words and number to call to help out the folks who have been ravaged by the Hurricane Katrina. Now, Shea Hillenbrand comes up. Runners at the corners for the Toronto Blue Jays. Hillenbrand in his career has never had a hit against Todd Williams. Blue Jays have scored 3 here in the 7th. They have a 2-run 6-4 lead. And Hillenbrand has his first hit against Todd. It's now a 7-4 lead. Catalanato scoring from third base. Hillenbrand with his 74th RBI, his first hit tonight.
Well, that's what he does so well. We told the story, 12 pitch at bat, the first time I ever saw him hit up in Boston right out of Double-A, talking about Hillenbrand. So he's just a contact guy. And once again, his approach is, I'm not going to overswing. I'm just going to try to hit it somewhere, hit it hard. And on occasion in this series, he got an RBI the other day, dumped one into right field, and that's pretty much what he did then.
The 9th Blue Jay to come to the plate is Eric Hinske. They've scored 4 times, and Hinske has strike 1 as he fouls it off third base side.
Well, 4 pitches here in the 7th inning for the Orioles. And that's not a good sign.
Julio started the inning. Then it was Chris Ray, Steve Klein, and now Todd Williams. Williams on the first pitch to Shea Hillenbrand, a looper to right field to score a run. And now runners at first and second for the Jays. 2 out. Count even up at 1 ball and 1 strike. Hinske tonight looking for his first hit, 0 for 3. Had a couple of at bats against Orioles starter John Maine, who went 5 innings, gave up 3 runs. And then he hit a fly ball to left field as he faced Jorge Julio. Luis Matos will get over, the center fielder, toward left center. Final out, but the Blue Jays, they'll strand 2 but score 4. We go to the bottom of the 7th. Toronto 7, Orioles 4.
That man, Michael Jenkins. This man, Chick Hernandez.
Coming up on the show, the Nats have a chance to move up the NL wildcard standings. The catch is really in the Marlins. Highlights and post-game reaction right here.
Orioles want to send the Blue Jays on their way with a series loss. We'll have a full recap from Camden Yards.
Plus, Redskins and Ravens are prepping for their season openers. We'll have reports on both teams.
That's tonight, after the game only. Comcast Sportsnet.
Well, be on the lookout for the Cal Ripken 2131 Iron Spirit wristbands to benefit the Robert Packard Center for ALS Research at Johns Hopkins and the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation. The wristbands sell for $2, currently available at Camden Yards, at all area CVS stores, and online at Ripken2131.com. Help raise money for these worthy causes by getting your own Iron Spirit wristband today. Well, the Orioles have fallen behind a 4-run 7th inning. Orioles now trail 7-4. And we have a couple of changes. Orlando Hudson had to be helped off the field. We see Aaron Hill, who played shortstop last night, goes in at second base. Also a new pitcher on for the Toronto Blue Jays, right-hander Jason Frazier.
And we told you about his numbers. The record not particularly good, and of course coming in today, but only stranded 28 of 31 inherited runners. So when he's come in with runners in scoring position or on base, he's been very effective. Tonight he has a lead, a 3-run lead.
Jay Gibbons.
Yeah, and he's been red hot.
With an RBI tonight, his 62nd of the year, 1 for 3. And the Orioles right fielder and cleanup batter looks at strike 1. Gibbons, Lopez, and Frade scheduled for the Orioles. A left ankle sprain for Orlando Hudson caused him to leave the game.
Well, that's bad news, but it's certainly better news than having a break or dislocation. So I hope he gets back on his feet as soon as he can. And there's a big breaking ball, Frazier, as we saw. And so they made some defensive changes and a little defense. Alex Rios getting the night off, at least to this moment. Very good defensive. And then over and left, Reed Johnson moves from right to left, even though Catalanato made the right, probably the best, along with Orlando Hudson, for the Jays, the best defensive plays of the night.
Jay Gibbons barking at Mark Carlson. Did not like that call of a strike. Thought it was a little bit low. 1-2 to Jay. 7 runs, 9 hits for the Jays. For Toronto, 4 runs, 8 hits for the Orioles. Orioles have left 8, Blue Jays 5, and Gibbons slams a foul into his first base side dugout. Remember, off day tomorrow for the Orioles as they journey from Baltimore to Seattle. And then the Orioles and the Seattle Mariners. 3 this weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. And then it's on for 3 with the Texas Rangers before returning home next weekend with Tampa Bay. 1 ball, 2 strikes. First game in Seattle, it'll be Eric Bedard and Jamie Moyer. Moyer 11-6. Of course, Eric 6-6. Saturday, 9:05 Eastern Time, Rodrigo Lopez and Jeff Harris. And then Sunday, 4:05 Eastern Time, Bruce Chen and Felix Hernandez. That's the pitching lineup for the Orioles and the Mariners. The 1-2 delivery. Bounce toward the first baseman. Retreating and fielding in fair ground is Hinsky. He throws to Frazier covering. And 1 Oriole retired here in the 7th.
Yeah, Frazier, who originally signed with the Tigers and traded to the Dodgers and then came over. Jason Worth actually won the #1 draft choice for the Orioles. I checked on one of the games, I guess it was last night or the night before, and he was playing center field for the Dodgers. Former catcher. So Jason came over in that trade. Last year, 17 saves before Miguel Batista became the closer. And you can see he got that big overhand curveball. You don't see that often from a right-hander.
Javi Lopez has a couple of hits, 2 for 2. He's also walked, scored a run, and driven in a run. So Javi now with 42 RBI. And that went down and away to the Orioles catcher. Big shift on for the Blue Jays. 3 infielders to the left side, 3 to the third base side of second base. And Frazier goes down and away again. 2 balls, no strikes. Second baseman Hill, shortstop Adams, and the third baseman Hillenbrand all to the left side of the bag at second. We see big Walter Young on deck for the Orioles. He would hit for Alejandro Frade. 2-1. Big rip by Javi.
Well, he doesn't get cheated when he's in a fastball count, and that's what you like. I think one of the things that annoyed Earl Weaver, other than base on balls if you were pitching for him, was if you got into a hitter's count and had a check swing. He would say, look for your pitch. If you get it, put a good swing on it. And there's another one. But just a very quality pitch by Frazier, and Rios is going to run it down.
Let's take a look now at the Ford in-game box for the Orioles, who trail 7-4 here with 2 out in the 7th.
Well, again, I mean, the Orioles, they trailed 1-0. They come back. They are ahead by 2, or actually 2-1. Then they are trailing 3-2, and then they come back ahead 4-3, and then all of a sudden, the Blue Jays, they come up with 4 runs in the 7th, and that's the difference. Walter Young, we saw him last night. He walked in his first major league at bat.
Fouled out of play left side. In the Oriole press guide, they list Walter at 6'5", 322 pounds. So I had a chance to sit down and chat with Walter today. I asked him, I said, okay, you tell me, you give me your real stats. He said, I'm 6'5", 298 pounds. He says, I've been working to lose some weight. 0-1. 13 home runs for Ottawa. Fouled straight back, 0-2. Two strikes to Walter Young. Said he was a bit disappointed with his power output for Ottawa with 13 home runs.
Well, you make that jump from AA to AAA. You're not going to get as many good pitches to hit. They're going to work on you. Throw you breaking balls, keep the ball out of the plate. Obviously, not everybody could do it, because if you do that at AAA, you'd probably be in the big leagues. So again, that may be his wife. I don't know that for sure, but she's sitting right next to Beth Palazzo. Beth was up last night and
doesn't want to see it.
Well, what happened if he got up 500 times a year?
Oh, geez.
She may have an eyesight problem.
1-2 to the big guy. The pitch to Walter Young. Fouled. Look out, Rick Dempsey, as he jumps out of the way. Let's take a reaction of the young lady we're assuming is Walter's wife.
Hit it fair, honey. Well, I mean, this is exciting for everybody. All the guys that are getting called up. I mean, you try to have as good a year as you can, and that ball on the outside corner, and Frazier makes a great pitch.
3 up, 3 down go the Orioles against Frazier. We go to the 8th inning. Toronto 7, Orioles 4. Well, the Orioles down by 3 as we move to the 8th inning, and a new pitcher, the 6th of the night for the Orioles, and it's Jason Grimsley.
Yeah, he comes in, and you know what? He really got hurt by the home run, and I think anytime you have Tommy John surgery October 12th of last year, and you make the kind of comeback, so he rushed back, and ball wasn't sinking. Velocity really wasn't that bad, Fred, but I think command of the ball and being able to throw what is really his #1 pitch, which is a sinker. You can see the splitter grip, but basically last year had a lot of success, and they knew what was coming, but the ball was going down. He kept it down, but velocity right around 91, 92. This year a little bit more of a struggle. And there's a good moving fastball outside corner.
Greg Zahn, 1 hit. It went out onto the flag court for his 9th home run of the year. One and one now. John Maine started, went 5 innings, gave up 3 runs. Jorge Julio, an inning in the 3rd, 2 runs given up. Chris Ray came on, gave up a couple more runs. Steve Klein, Todd Williams, and now Jason Grimsley. Second hit of the night for Zahn, just out of the dive of Brian Roberts. We talked about Greg Zahn going out onto the flag court. Let's go back to the 5th inning.
Right there, the bat toss. That's 2 consecutive nights, and these gloves aren't working. He's taken back, and then he runs the count to 3 and 2, and finally gets a pitch he likes. 9th home run of the year.
Zahn against his old ball club has had a very nice season, driving in 13 runs. 13 of his RBI coming against the Birds. He is 52 total. And now Reed Johnson. Johnson's had a couple of hits. A double, a run scored in the 5th, a single and a run scored in the 4-run 7th inning for Toronto. Ball 1 to the outfielder. Johnson started in right field tonight and then switched to left. And on deck is Aaron Hill, who came in to take over for the injured Orlando Hudson, and we've been told it's a sprained left ankle for the Blue Jays second baseman. Running was Zahn, but a foul at the plate. Count evens, 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, it's interesting. John Gibbons was talking about it. He said, you played with Rick Dempsey. He said, was Demper very much like Greg Zahn, where you got everything he has? And I said, well, very much so. And I think Cal Ripken was talking about it last night. We saw Greg Zahn climb the screen behind home plate a couple of times, trying to get pop-ups. That's what Rick would do. I mean, Demper, I still remember one afternoon, because in Yankee Stadium it's downhill to that back wall. There was like 4 pop-ups in a row, and they all went out of play, and Demper went back and slid and did all that kind of stuff. So it kind of runs in the family, and it's kind of interesting. John Gibbons said, what do you see when you look at the Blue Jays? And I see a team that plays very hard, and that's what you want as a manager. Probably a little bit under-talented, under-experienced, because they're a young ball club. Pretty good bullpen, good closer with Batista. Probably need a bat, probably need another starter, and it would help to have their Cy Young Award winner Roy Halladay be able to stay healthy. He was on his way to another Cy Young, it appeared, this year, until he got the broken leg. So again, it's, I think you sometimes are what you are, but if you're a manager, you want guys, and Davey Johnson, I still remember him talking about this. He said, my clubs usually play up to the potential. And maybe the Blue Jays have done that. They've had injuries. Koski was out. He was supposed to be the guy that was going to take Delgado's place in a sense. You lose your Cy Young Award winner, yet you're still right around 500 in a very tough division. You show up every night and you win, and I think that's what the Orioles are trying to do. And Sammy Palazzo doing very much what John Gibbons, trying to get this ball club over the last 24, 23 games, whatever it's going to be, to play their hearts out. And that's your goal.
3-2 to Reed Johnson. It's on at first, nobody out. And Johnson goes down, throw to second base, and Zahn as a strike him out, throw him out, double play.
Yeah, nice pitch by Jason Grimsley. His stuff seems to be, after retiring all three up in Boston on Saturday, a lot crisper. And then your Lojack caught stealing. There it is, Lojack caught stealing. And Zahn, this is more like, I hope he makes contact. Great throw by Javi Lopez, and they do get the strike him out right there, and then just perfect throw, tails right back, and Brian Roberts. You can see Zahn trying to sneak his way in.
Aaron Hill now. Hill was the starting shortstop in the opening game of this series, but takes over at second base due to the injury of Orlando Hudson. Hudson hurt on his slide to the plate in the 7th inning when he scored the second run of 4 for the Blue Jays that inning. Aaron Hill at .276 season average.
And you got to understand he's 0 for his last 15. Those numbers a lot better. And again, I think Mickey Brantley, Terry Crowley talking about a lot of young hitters that they come up in the month of September. It's exciting to be in the big leagues. Hill's been up there more than just the month of September, but this is the first time that they've played this much, and they, now all of a sudden you got to perform in September. And the Blue Jays and the Orioles are going to see some awfully good pitching because they're playing the Red Sox and the Yankees, even though they're not two of the better pitching teams. They're teams obviously that have a lot at stake. And there is Mickey Brantley on our left, and Shea Hillenbrand.
You speak of the Red Sox and the Yankees, both winners tonight. The Yankees rallied from a 4-1 deficit. Giambi, a 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th as they beat Tampa Bay 5-4. And the Boston Red Sox came from behind to defeat the Angels tonight at Fenway 6-3. 2-2 to Hill, 2 out here in the 8th inning. And Hill is the second strikeout, 3rd out of the inning. We go to the bottom of the 8th, 7-4 Toronto over the Orioles.
Studios, we'll get you back out to the game in just a second, but first let's take a look at how the Yankees are faring tonight against the Devil Rays. D-Rays 10-4 this season against the Yankees, and they were up 4-0 in this game. But in the 8th, with a man on, it's Jason Giambi. Wow, what a turnaround he's had this season. His 27th homer of the year, and the Yankees on top 5-4. Now let's go back to Jim Palmer and Fred Manfred, Camden Yards.
Well, thank you very much, Russ. And the Yankees and the Boston Red Sox continue as they fight for that top spot in the American League East. Yankees now trailing Boston, continuing to trail them by 4. And they also have, of course, thoughts of that wild card if they can't get the American League East top spot.
Right, and the Red Sox, not a very good road club. In fact, they're under 500. And as we mentioned last night, there's not a team in the American League East that is over 500 on the road. Red Sox go up to Yankee Stadium on the weekend. We'll be out in Seattle. The Orioles, of course, need some offense here. Dave Newhan will come up and
see the numbers for David this year. Jason Frazier has a 1-ball, 1-strike count. 1 for 5, David, as a pinch hitter this season with the Birds. He has a couple of trips back to AAA in Ottawa over the course of the season. 2-1. Frazier came on in the 7th and got Gibbons, Lopez, and Young 1, 2, 3 in the inning. Here, Burns, Gomez, and Matos scheduled for the Orioles, but we see B.J. Surhoff on deck, and he would pinch hit for Chris Gomez. Second baseman Hill, and they get the first out. Now, Comcast Sportsnet coverage of Orioles baseball is brought to you by Pulte. Visit Pulte Homes at Pulte.com. By Geico, a 15-minute call could save you 15% or more in car insurance. And by Maryland Lottery, let yourself play. So the introduction of B.J. Surhoff. His wife Polly out collecting for the victims of the the Hurricane Katrina today. Ball low to BJ. Surhoff's numbers as a pinch hitter. He's still looking for that first pinch hit. 0 for 8. 259 the season average. 5 home runs. 27 driven in for the veteran.
The Orioles collectively 6 for 54. So again, it's so much different in the American League. If you're a National League player, you know that you're probably going to pinch hit probably 2-3 times a week. Because of the DH, obviously, on some teams hardly ever using pinch hitters. The teams with the real set lineups.
And the left fielder Johnson racing toward the stands. And Reed Johnson puts it away. Nice catch as he hung with it. 2 down.
See, he has much better balance in left field than he does right. Go back to the Tejada fly ball where he lost his balance, slipped on the warning track. Once again, you're kind of on your toes anyway. You want to run on your heels. Ball bounces around, but once you slip, you got to be pretty tentative. But again, a lot of agility. Was it a nice night?
Luis Matos 0 for 2, a walk. And Luis takes ball 1. Charging in from third base was Hillenbrand.
And we talked about the bullpen. Frazier comes in, and he's in his second inning. He's throwing now 96 miles per hour, changeups and curveballs.
Two 2-0 to Luis. Orioles trailing by 3. 7-4, bottom of the 8th, 2 out. And this is the game that decides the winner of the season series between the two. 9-9 the records. Johnson over, and he makes the grab. Second consecutive 3 up, 3 down inning for Frazier. We move to the 9th inning, 7-4 Toronto. Now it's the 9th inning. Blue Jays ahead of the Birds by 3, 7-4. Some changes defensively for the Orioles. David Newhan, who came up as a pinch hitter for Eric Byrne, stays in the ballgame. He takes over in left field for Eric. And B.J. Surhoff, who came up as the pinch hitter for Chris Gomez, at that time the Orioles first baseman. He is now the Orioles first baseman. And the new pitcher is none other than B.J. Ryan.
Yeah, a little tune-up. He hadn't pitched since Friday, and with tomorrow an off day as the Orioles head out to Seattle. Sammy Palazzo said that I'd like to use him in a save situation tonight. That at least talking about that before the game.
And Miguel Tejada will head out toward shallow left. And Adams is retired on a couple of pitches.
It's so interesting when you talk to BJ about can you assume the role of closer, and he said I always thought it was more difficult, even though I haven't closed, to maybe come in as a setup guy. And a lot of times if you come up in a setup guy, you come in pitching with runners on base with maybe a one run lead. And the irony of games like tonight is that your best pitcher, and he's pitching now, wasn't in the game when you had a lead, and that's why it would have been so much nicer to have a closer, because you knew this guy is about as good a setup man as there was in baseball. Didn't matter last year whether they were lefty or they were righties. If we looked at Alec Rios, he came in for defense.
That youngster was frightened by that ball that came screaming back. Thank goodness for the netting.
3D.
Now B.J. Ryan will be a very popular guy this winter if the Orioles don't wrap him up before the free agent season.
Yeah, B.J. coming over. I mean, he came over in the Juan Guzman trade back in July 31st of 1999. So he's been here ever since and kind of involved in the terrific pitcher, whether he's a closer, setup guy. Only had about 130 innings in the minor leagues before he did come to the big leagues.
Let's revisit those Jim Coleman Honda keys to the game.
Well, again, John Maine once again, pitch count not as high as it was in Boston. 100 pitches up there, 89. Had a chance to win in September song. Going to both teams trying to get to 500. The Blue Jays, and the bottom line is that this was the rubber game of this series. Both of these teams with 9 wins. Well, last year the Orioles finishing third and the Blue Jays under 500. First time in what, 7 years that it wasn't Yankees, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Orioles. Last year the Orioles snuck into third place.
Well, the closer, Miguel Batista, up and getting ready to come in to face the Orioles in the bottom of the ninth for the Blue Jays. Jake Gibbons over in a very quiet top of the ninth for the Jays. 1-2-3 against the big guy B.J. Ryan. We go to the bottom of the ninth inning. 7-4 Toronto. Well, we move to the bottom of the ninth, and the Orioles down by 3. They'll be facing the Toronto closer. Now tonight on Sports Night, presented by PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ravens questions, and then the Marlins Nats recap and Hokies update. That's tonight on Sports Night on Comcast Sports Net. Talked about the closer, and it's Miguel Batista for John Gibbons and the Jays.
Yeah, 6 blown saves, so 25 out of 31 opportunities, and just the other night up in the Rogers Center, he came in against the Tampa Bay Ball Club, 2-1 lead, and Cliff Lee hit a 2-run home run. 3 consecutive cutters. He hit the third one for a 2-run shot and ended up losing. But you know, again, he can be a little erratic. He can be overpowering. He really came here as a starter out of Arizona. They thought they got a guy that they could use as a starter. He evolved after Jason Frazier struggled a little bit to become the closer. 5 saves last year and the 25 this year.
Now the Orioles sent Roberts, Mora, and Tejada, all guys who have good numbers against Batista. And the first delivery to Brian is low. Brian Roberts in his career against this right-hander, 4 for 13. That works out to a .308 average, and the Orioles need base runners and runs.
Yeah, and you hope you get a base hit, maybe a base on balls, and then somebody hits one. Well, the only home run tonight, Greg Zahn. He goes deep.
2-1 to Brian. Well, the Orioles last saw Batista back in the Rogers Center when the Orioles took the games against the Blue Jays, and Batista came in a non-save situation, gave up a couple of runs in 2/3 of an inning. And Roberts with a 2-ball, 2-strike count. The big inning for the Blue Jays, the 4-run 7th inning. That turned the game in their favor. They lead by 3, 7-4.
Yeah, the Orioles went into the 7th with a 1-run lead. They sent 5 players to at least the initial 5 after an out. 4 base hits, a walk, and ended up with 4 runs.
Another foul ball off the bat of Brian Roberts at a 96-mile-an-hour fastball.
Well, he's got 2 kind of fastballs. You throw that 96-mile-per-hour that runs away from you if you're left-handed. If you're right-handed, it runs in on you. And he's got the cut fastball. That was one he threw the pitch before that was fouled into the dugout. Also has a big slow curveball. Doesn't throw that much.
And he struck him out.
See, that's that cutter. He starts at the outside corner, and Brian just gives up on it a little bit because you think it's going to stay outside, and it'll just sail back right to left and catch the outside corner. It's almost like a hard slider. But again, well over 90 miles per hour at 92.
Talked about Melvin's numbers in the past against Batista, 4 for 12. Orioles need runners. Up and in, 1-0 to Melvin Mora. Tonight, Mora has had a base hit. He's 1 for 3. Also, he's walked. The average at 277. One and one to the Oriole third baseman. Off day tomorrow, then the road trip begins. Friday night in Seattle. 3 against the Mariners there. Then 3 against Texas and Arlington before the Orioles will return home next Friday night. Not this coming Friday, but the following Friday. And it will be 3 against the Tampa Bay Devil Rays in another 3-game homestand. 2-1. Up the middle and stopped by Adams, but he can't do anything with it. A diving stop of that ball up the middle. And the Orioles get a base runner with one down in Melvin Mora.
Well, we saw Russ Adams do this early on and diving up the middle and came up and then threw one away at third base, this time hoping that he can get to it and get up on his knees and throw out Melvin Morris. So there, Fred, is one of the base runners you talked about.
And now Miguel Tejada, who is a .375 lifetime hitter against Batista, 6 for 16 with a couple of home runs, comes up. Mora at first base. Tejada tonight has a triple in 3 at-bats. Strike one to Miguel. That was a triple that was a ball that Reed Johnson thought he was going to grab for the second out in the 4th inning, but then things kind of went awry. I should say second out in the 5th inning. Off Zahn's glove, but Mora not advancing towards second base. 1-1. Melvin Mora at first. Orioles down by 3. And Miguel Tejada facing Miguel Batista. To Batista. Low throw picked up by Adams. Throw to first. And that is going to go into the Oriole dugout.
Well, again, yeah, one thing you want to do, Fred, and he does take a crow hop, and he gets his balance, talking about Miguel Batista, but he still throws it away. Or he doesn't throw it away, but he makes a horrible throw. So this is about as tailor-made, but with a 3-run lead, he wants to make sure that he gets the lead runner. So watch him take his time. See there, he little crow hop and just kind of throws a cutter to the shortstop, and then he makes another low throw. So again, Russ Adams already with an error is going to have another one as Tejada is going to beat the throw and then go to second base on the error.
And Zahn tried to sprint down the warning track area and make a hockey-like save to keep that ball from going into the Orioles dugout. That would have kept Tejada at first base.
Yeah, I mean, that run, I mean, that was just so tailor-made. All you have to do is turn around, keep your hands together, make a good throw, and you're probably going to get a double play, without a doubt. And again, it shows you it doesn't matter how many times you do this in spring training. You do these drills when the game starts. Sometimes
a little bit different in the game than
well,
in
it
drills.
shouldn't be, but it is.
Jake Gibbons inside. 1-0. Gibby has had a home run in his at-bats against Miguel Batista. 3 for 12. Those are the numbers for Jay Gibbons. Tejada at second base. Orioles down to their final out here in the bottom of the 9th, trailing by 3. 2 balls and no strikes.
You know, that's a play, Fred. If you're a starter, you're probably making your sleep because it happens so much more. But if you're a closer, how many times over the course of the year do you get a routine ball right back to you and you have to turn to double play?
Javi Lopez would be next for the Orioles. And if they can get Gibbons on, he would represent the tying run of this ball game. And there's the first strike of the at-bat to Jay. 2 balls, 1 strike.
And it appeared that he was taking. And again, not turning that double play is like giving the Orioles an extra out. Game should be over.
Tejada at second base with 2 down, the 2-1 pitch, and now 2 balls, 2 strikes to the Orioles. Right fielder Jay Gibbons, an RBI single tonight. This is his 5th at bat. So the Orioles now down to their final strike. Gibbons down. That's the ball game. A foul tip into the glove of Greg Zahn. And the Toronto Blue Jays will win the season series from the Orioles. Blue Jays taking 10 of the 19 played between the two ball clubs. And they win 6 of the 9 here at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Our Nissan player of the game tonight is Frank Catalanato. See his offensive numbers. Also made an outstanding running grab of a ball.
Yeah, you know, I guess this is what baseball is all about. Fails to get a runner in, then comes back, makes a great play, then gets an RBI single, does get a couple of walks, gets the pitch count up.
And Frank Catalanato also involved in our Chevrolet play of the game.
There you go, and right here now it's 4-3. The Orioles trying to add runs, and there's runners at first and second, so you know the runner at second's going to score. And again, going back like that, the ball hops over his head. The runner from first, you would have had this would have made it 6-3, and all of a sudden, maybe it wouldn't have made a whole lot of difference. But the Blue Jays do come roaring back with a 4-run 7th inning, which is the Orioles' undoing tonight.
So the Orioles lose it 7-4 to Toronto. We'll be back to Oriole Park at Camden Yards after these messages.